Chapter 2699. There was also a group of ancient immortals and ancient gods stationed on this life planet. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed with killing intent as he asked, "Where are they stationed? Is there only a few tens of thousands of people left in your tribe?" The elder's face dimmed as he whispered, "After so many years, the Yen clan has at most 1 million people. They were divided into 2 tribes to fight against the ancient gods and ancient immortals respectively. However, after so many years, they have been defeated. Our tribe has less than 100,000 people, while the other tribe has about 100,000 people. The number of young people is decreasing and the battle situation is becoming more and more disadvantageous for us." "What about the ancient gods and ancient immortals?" Yi Qinghan asked. When the elder mentioned the 2 tribes, his eyes were filled with anger and sadness as he said hoarsely, "The 2 tribes have about 300,000 people left. They have too many elites with powerful bloodlines. Moreover, they have lived for a long time and each of them has a 4th form immemorial being still alive. Although they are already rotten and can't personally fight, they are guarding their bases. We don't dare to chase into their main camp. This means that even if they are defeated, they still have a way out. As for us, once we are defeated, we won't even have a way out. A 4th form immemorial being still alive. They were living fossils with monstrous strength and a thorough understanding of all kinds of divine abilities and secret technique. They also grasped the weakness of the Yen clan. When they attacked, it would be like thunder. The reason why the Yen clan was able to hold on until now was definitely because countless ancestors used their flesh and blood to build a wall to protect their clansmen." Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly. With his strength, he could indeed kill a 4th form immemorial being, and it wouldn't be difficult. However, when facing a 4th form immemorial being, he was clearly a little weak. Especially this kind of 4th form immemorial being. Once they were defeated, they would definitely use a method of mutual destruction. In the end, they would even perish together. "Elder, go and inform the other tribe to gather with us. 10 years later, I will deal with the 2 tribes of ancient gods and ancient immortals." Yi Qinghan touched Yen Zhu's left arm and secretly said, "It's time to refine it." However, Yi Qinghan's plan did not receive the support of the elders. The elder said in a deep voice, "Your Highness, our 2 tribes are guarding the resources of the 2 mountain ranges. Once we leave, the resources will be handed over to others. Without resources, we will be beaten and become extremely passive. If you are unable to defeat their strongest expert, the Flame Clan's final outcome will be extremely tragic." The old man had been beaten into a pulp. He was cautious and did not dare to take any risk. Yi Qinghan, on the other hand, was the aggressive type. He liked to attack forcefully and kill his opponent until they were afraid. That was the best defense. Yi Qinghan was silent for a moment. He tapped his finger on the stone table. It was understandable that the elder wanted to leave a path for the Flame Clan. Just as the 2 of them were silent, a whistling arrow suddenly appeared in the sky. It exploded in the sky like fireworks. The expression of the elder of the Yen clan changed greatly. "SOS. Another tribe has been attacked, and they won't be able to hold on much longer." The elder hurriedly stood up and looked down at Yi Qinghan, but Yi Qinghan had already left. "You stay here and guard the tribe. I'll go and support them." Boom! The voice boomed. Yi Qinghan's afterimage was still in the same place, but the voice had already come from 100 li away. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, Yi Qinghan seemed to be teleporting. His figure dodged and broke through the void. He directly tore through the land of death and rushed in the direction of the arrow. Below the whistling arrow was a huge tribe. It was ancient and majestic. A large number of elders stood outside the tribe. They were all members of the Flame Clan. They were filled with the will to die as they fought against the enemy. As for the middle-aged expert of the Flame Clan, he was watching the elders die. His eyes were filled with tears and the weapon in his hand was trembling. The young man of the Flame Clan held a powerful immortal crossbow and aimed at the ancient immortal expert who was attacking the tribe. The first part was a war of attrition. The elders were about to give it their all. The middle-aged man would kill them. When all the middle-aged men died, the young men and women would go to the front lines. The last wave was the children and women. Kill. The sound of killing shook the heavens. Blood flowed on the ground, dyeing the grass red. The old men fell one after another. The ancient immortals were extremely powerful. They actually had 3 fourth form experts. As for the Yen tribe, there were only 2 left. The Yen tribe could only use the lives of the old men to replace the 3rd fourth form expert of the ancient immortals. They hoped that the reinforcements from the other Yen tribe would arrive. This tribe was a big one. It was slightly bigger than the one Yi Qinghan saw before. The experts were all here, but it was still miserable. Kill. The middle-aged man of the Flame Clan finally found an opportunity. He killed his way into the enemy's camp from the flank and began to fight crazily. He fought with his life to intimidate the ancient immortals. Xiao! 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 Sword light filled the sky. The power of the human Tao shot out. The Flame Clan's great divine abilities were ever-changing. They began the most miserable battle with the ancient immortals. The middle-aged man of the Flame Clan was the main force. If he died, the Flame Clan would be wiped out. The ancient immortals fought for the sake of killing, while the Flame Clan fought for the sake of inheritance. Their goals were different. Hence, the Flame Clan had no way to retreat. They could only fight to the death. Even if they died, they had to bring an ancient immortal expert with them. The eyes of the children in the tribe were red. When they saw their parents rushing to kill, their faces were malevolent. Their hatred overflowed into the heavens. Generation after generation after generation of struggle. Hence, the Flame Clan had never forgotten their hatred. Boom. The 3rd fourth form ancient immortal realm expert was using an overwhelming advantage to continuously kill the Flame Clan's elders. Even if the elders self-destructed, they were unable to cause any destructive damage to him. His face was malevolent, and his inhumane smile caused people to tremble. Bang! Another Flame Clan elder suffered heavy injuries. He directly broke through the defenses of the Flame Clan tribe and fell into the tribe. His vision turned black and he fainted. Many children surrounded the elder, glaring angrily at the approaching 4th form expert. Even if they died, they wouldn't admit defeat. Today, this immortal monarch has entered the 4th form. It is the time for your Flame Clan to be wiped out. That middle-aged 4th form expert laughed coldly. He walked towards the Flame Clan tribe with a murderous expression. No wonder they were defeated so quickly this time. It turned out that the other side had another 4th form expert. What a pity! If I wipe you out today, we won't be able to play anymore. We won't be able to go back. How boring! That 4th form expert's eyes were filled with crazy pleasure. Kill. Even though the cultivation of the 3rd form young men and women were very weak, their willpower was indestructible. The immortal crossbow shot through the air, and the crossbow arrow pierced through the void. However, just as it approached the 4th form expert, the crossbow arrow was fixed in place. Then, it was forcefully changed direction. Whoosh! 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 The crossbow arrow shot toward the young children at an even faster speed. This wave of arrows was enough to destroy the last hope of the Flame Clan. Whoosh! Whoosh! The arrow rain pierced through the void, and in the blink of an eye, it arrived outside the Flame Clan tribe. No. The middle-aged man from the 2nd form expert's eyes were about to split open. They were the mainstay, but the 3rd form expert was the hope of the Flame Clan. However, the distance was too far. They didn't even have the chance to go back and help. Just as lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, the speeding crossbow arrow suddenly froze in midair. It didn't move an inch. The space distorted, but the crossbow arrow couldn't move an inch forward. The 4th form expert immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. A wave of killing intent enveloped his heart, causing his hair to stand on end. Buzz! The crossbow arrow struggled madly. It wanted to break free and destroy the Flame Clan's hope. However, not only did it not retreat, the arrow changed direction. Whoosh! 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 The crossbow arrow turned 90 degrees. It didn't attack the fourth form expert. Instead, it attacked the main battlefield. Poochie! The crossbow arrow seemed to have eyes. In the blink of an eye, it pierced through the heads of more than 300 ancient immortals. Its momentum was unstoppable. It directly destroyed the souls of more than 300 ancient immortals. Who? Come out! The fourth form expert roared. The crossbow arrow that he controlled killed more than 300 of his clansmen. However, he didn't even see who defeated him. How could he not be angry? Chapter 2700. Whoosh! Outside the Yen tribe, space distorted and a young man appeared. His black hair danced in the wind and his eyes were filled with killing intent. He looked down at the other party. I'm here. You can die now. Yi Qinghan's speed was unbelievably fast. He had traversed space-time and appeared in this place within the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Fortunately, he had appeared in time. Otherwise, the last hope of this large tribe would have been wiped out. The Yen tribe members were excited. They didn't expect a helper. Although they didn't know each other, he would definitely help them to the end. You're courting death. The fourth form ancient immortal saw that it was actually a third stage and was instantly enraged. He punched with immortal spiritual energy, shattering space and time. He directly attacked Yi Qinghan. Whoosh! The tips of Yi Qinghan's feet crossed as he pulled his right arm back. His veins bulged, and his eyes shone with the light of the Order of the Myriad Laws. Without even thinking, he punched back. Boom! Ka, poo, ah! Yi Qinghan's attack was too fast, and a bloody mist exploded in the sky. The fourth form was powerful enough, but he was defeated even faster. His right arm was destroyed by Yi Qinghan's fist, and his bones and flesh turned into a bloody mist. His body seemed to have been struck by lightning. Bang! The fourth form was thrown far away. His eyeballs almost fell out. Blood flowed out of his orifices. His body twitched and was filled with the destructive power of human Tao. I've said it before. You can die now that I'm here. Yi Qinghan walked casually. He seemed to be walking slowly, but he was as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, he stepped on the fourth form's head. Bang! Crack! The fourth form, even though it was a middle-aged man who had just entered the fourth form, didn't even have a chance to resist Yi Qinghan. His skull was crushed. The immortal soul in his sea of consciousness was drowned by the power of human Tao. The fourth form's soul let out a shrill scream. The entire battlefield fell silent. The battle stopped and everyone was stunned. They turned their heads to see Yi Qinghan crush a fourth form fighter. The two fourth form Yen clan elders stared at Yi Qinghan in shock. They discovered that the Yen clan aura on his body was even denser and more terrifying than theirs. The key point was that they had never seen Yi Qinghan before. Since when did the Yen clan have such a supreme? The eyes of the ancient immortal narrowed as he stared at Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan merely looked like he was 30 years old. He was so young yet he already had the strength to kill fourth form immortals. Even the inheritances of emperors wouldn't be able to do so, right? Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's battle robes fluttered in the wind as he slowly stepped onto the battlefield. Looking at the two experts in the fourth state of the ancient immortal realm, he said indifferently, "Both of you, attack together. Don't say I didn't give you a chance." Boom! Yi Qinghan Yen Zhu's right arm recovered. His aura surged into the heavens. The Yen clan's supreme beings might attack the mountains and rivers, intimidating all of time. Both of you go and kill the other ancient immortals. From today onwards, the Yen clan will no longer be passive. Yi Qinghan used his aura to intimidate the two fourth-form ancient immortals. He waved his hand to signal the two Yen clan elders. His voice was firm, giving off an incomparable confidence. Kill. The Yen clan was strong. They finally seized the opportunity to counterattack and began their counterattack. One of the fourth-form Yen clan elders left and killed his way into the army of ancient immortals. However, the other one didn't leave. He was afraid that Yi Qinghan wouldn't be able to withstand the attacks of the two experts. 2 against 2. The eyes of the two fourth-form ancient immortal realm experts flashed with cold light. Their killing intent was dense. The strongest of the two said coldly, "I didn't expect the Yen clan to have such a supreme after so many years. However, since you have appeared, I dare to guarantee that you won't live for more than 3 years. My clan's ancestor will definitely personally take action and kill you into the nirvana state." Is that so? However, you won't have the chance to see it. Boom! Yi Qinghan's right fist broke through mountains and rivers. He directly found the strongest expert. In the blink of an eye, the power of human Tao flooded the mountains and rivers. 3,000 great divine arts were used. Thousands of techniques were used, causing the mountains and rivers to change color. He directly forced the expert to retreat. Bang bang bang! Yi Qinghan's strength suppressed the opponent. However, this person wasn't the one who had just entered the fourth form. He was a true fourth form expert. His cultivation didn't lose to an archaic master god's successor. Fist was the Taigu Emperor's weapon. There was nothing more crazy and powerful than Yi Qinghan. His iron fist smashed the opponent's powerful immortal weapon until it trembled. The eyes of the fourth form ancient immortal realm expert were filled with fear. Even his battle intent was smashed away by Yi Qinghan. Bang! Yi Qinghan circulated all the strength in his body through his right arm. This fist smashed the fourth form immortal weapon until it bent. It forcefully smashed into the opponent's chest, causing him to cough out blood and fly backward. You are the successor of the Yen clan's imperial family. Pooh! Cough cough cough. The fourth form ancient immortal realm expert's eyes were filled with fear. Yi Qinghan had practically all of the Yen clan's great abilities. They were ever-changing. With the support of the Yen ancestor's right arm, it wasn't something that an ordinary fourth form ancient immortal realm expert could resist. Smart. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance to see the ancient immortal realm's destruction. Bang! Boom boom boom! Yi Qinghan fiercely charged forward. Once he gained the upper hand, he used an even more powerful stance to suppress the opponent until he couldn't breathe. The opponent's defeat was already set in stone. It all depended on when Yi Qinghan would be able to kill him. At this moment, the Yen clan had an additional fourth form ancient immortal realm expert. He charged into the ancient immortal realm's army and forcefully slaughtered them. The Yen clan's army of tens of thousands collapsed and tore open a hole. The Yen clan's army turned defeat into victory. Woo woo woo! The horn of defeat sounded. The ancient immortal realm experts began to flee. However, the faster they fled, the faster they were defeated. The fourth form ancient immortal realm expert was like a harvester. Blood flowed like a river. In the blink of an eye, thousands of ancient immortal realm experts died. Whoosh, ding! Just as the battle was about to end, a second arrow rang out. The Yen clan's tribe that Yi Qinghan was in was also attacked. The other party had clearly discussed this beforehand. They fought on two fronts and didn't give them a chance to call for help. Boom, crack! Yi Qinghan was extremely angry. He used almost all of his strength to punch out, directly breaking the opponent's hand. Then, he kicked the opponent's head, almost sending him deep into the ground. In the blink of an eye, one of the 3 fourth form ancient immortal realm experts died, and the other was heavily injured. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan saw that the other party had no chance and left the battlefield in the blink of an eye. He came quickly and left even faster. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Yi Qinghan was as fast as lightning. He didn't dare to waste any time. The other tribe had even fewer experts. Even a moment of delay could lead to the destruction of the tribe. Moreover, Dark Dancer was still in the tribe. The situation in Dark Dancer's tribe wasn't too serious. Before the ancient god clan attacked, they had been discovered by the Yen clan's spies. They didn't fire the arrow to call for help, but to warn the other tribe that the other party was fighting on two fronts. The old elder took a deep breath and mobilized the Yen clan members to prepare to defend while migrating to the other tribe. Now that Yi Qinghan was here, he didn't want to fight to the death. There was still a chance. This was the time to conserve their strength. Dark Dancer led a group of children and began to retreat. However, the enemy attacked from all directions and didn't seem to give them a chance to retreat. In just a few moments, the other party had arrived. The ancient god clan had 2 fourth form experts, but they were still far from the level of divine generals. They seemed to have the Yen clan in their grasp. This battle was destined to exterminate the Yen clan. Fighting on 2 fronts, they didn't need to be too nervous. Therefore, they didn't attack immediately. Instead, they watched as the ancient god experts surrounded the Yen clan members like hunters hunting their prey. They even laughed and commented from time to time. These 2 fourth form ancient gods didn't know that the ancient immortals had already lost, and they had lost miserably. Of the 3 fourth form ancient gods, 2 were already dead. The one that Yi Qinghan had heavily injured was killed by the other 4th form Yen clan expert. They didn't even have a chance. On the other battlefield, the Yen clan had the upper hand. They believed that they would soon gain complete control of the situation. Moreover, Yi Qinghan was already on his way to help. If they didn't attack now, it would be equivalent to giving up the opportunity to attack. Chapter 2701. At the exit of the tribe, Dark Dance was escaping with a group of children. They were surrounded by experts of the ancient god clan. They seemed to be playing a game of eagle-catching chick. The men were killed and the women were captured. It was extremely cruel. The 2 experts in the 4th state stared at the elder of the Yen clan with a sinister smile. From today onwards, the Yen clan will be gone. It's boring just thinking about it. One of the middle-aged experts pretended to sigh regretfully. The other expert in the 4th state laughed sinisterly. There's still the Dark Moon clan. Step by step, we'll have some fun. Yeah, luckily there's still the Dark Moon clan. Otherwise, we'll be too lonely if we can't go back. Maybe we can capture them and raise them in captivity. The women will be slaves and the men will be prey. That's more interesting. They didn't treat the Yen clan as humans but as ants. The ruthlessness in their words vividly displayed the hatred between the 2 clans. The elder of the Yen clan was extremely angry. Even in the face of the 2 experts, he didn't shrink back. He directly attacked and contributed his last bit of strength to the retreat of his clansmen. Boom! The elder of the Yen clan roared. His palm shook the space and distorted it. Divine light shone brightly. The profoundness of his divine ability was displayed vividly. Bang! The 2 experts teased and attacked the elder. In the blink of an eye, they were in a fight. In the distance, the periphery of the Yen clan's tribe was breached and fell into a desperate battle. In order to preserve their hope, the middle-aged man, elder, and woman attacked with all their might to protect the young children. However, the ancient god clan only wanted to destroy all the young children of the Yen clan and cut off the Yen clan's inheritance. Dark Dance crazily attacked the approaching experts. Fortunately, she was also a mystic immortal expert. Moreover, those who attacked the children were all mystic immortals. The gap between them wasn't big. She used the Dark Moon Ring. The power of the Dark Moon poured out and attacked the approaching experts indiscriminately. Shio shio shio. Bang. Dozens of experts of the ancient god clan were temporarily stopped. Ha ha ha, so it's a girl from the Dark Moon clan. She's not bad. Once we catch her, we can have some fun. Whoever catches her can have her. We should also get some fresh slaves. The ancient god soldiers laughed crazily and looked at Dark Dance as if she was their prey. In a moment, Dark Dance was injured, but she refused to give up on these children. She would rather die than leave one behind. Dark Dancer kept pouncing on the children who were about to be killed. She flipped and rolled to avoid the enemy's attacks. The soldiers of the ancient god lineage seemed to want to catch Dark Dancer alive. Hence, after dozens of attacks, she was not hurt. However, there were a few wounds on her body that were dripping with blood. Oh, the ancient divine soldiers clamored and made strange noises. The divine spears in their hands pressed forward step by step. Whoosh! The Yen clan's tribe was set ablaze. The flames of war were everywhere. The most critical juncture had arrived. Whoosh! Just at this moment, Yi Qinghan directly returned the way he came. He was even faster than when he left. He used a great divine ability from a distance and tore apart the mountains and rivers with a single blade. Before he even arrived, the blade had already smashed into the Yen tribe's army of ancient gods. Boom! The 7-foot-long saber descended from the sky and stabbed into the ground. Shockwaves swept out and sent hundreds of people flying. Ah! Bang, bang, bang! Hundreds of people were preparing to charge, but they were directly shaken by a wave of power that caused them to bleed from their 7 orifices. They coughed up blood, and some of them were even shaken to death because they were too close. One! Zhong Kuang stabbed into the ground, but it was not motionless. Instead, it was trembling rapidly, causing the void to distort and emit a terrifying might. Who is it? Enemy attack! Woo woo woo! The bugle horn for reinforcements was blown. The heavens and earth were filled with a melody, and the sound of drums shook the heavens. Whoosh! Boom! In less than 3 breaths of time after Zhong Kuang appeared, Yi Qinghan powerfully appeared. With a wave of his hand, Zhong Kuang appeared in his hand. He slashed out more than 20 times and actually destroyed dozens of experts in succession. This allowed the experts of the Yen tribe to free up their hands to save the children. Whoosh! Poochie! Actually, the moment Yi Qinghan appeared, an ancient god soldier rushed toward a child. At this moment, Dark Dancer jumped in front of the child. Her left shoulder was pierced by a divine spear. Blood spurted out onto the child's face. Ah! Dark Dancer screamed as her body flew backward, knocking the child behind her away. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan heard the familiar scream. His figure flashed as he caught the child and Dark Dancer. He waved his hand to stop the bleeding on Dark Dancer's body. A cold light flashed as he coldly looked at the approaching ancient god soldiers. Buzz! The will and order of the surroundings changed. The divine spears in the hands of the ancient god soldiers twisted and pointed at their masters. Ah, what's going on, Poochie? The internal order of the divine spear changed, and the tip of the spear pierced through the void, aiming for their throats. In the blink of an eye, it pierced through their throat. The dozens of ancient god soldiers couldn't believe what they were seeing, and they couldn't imagine that they would die under their own divine spear. As soon as Yi Qinghan appeared, the scene became chaotic. Bang! Boom! Yi Qinghan punched forward. The shockwave sent the people fighting in the surroundings flying. He controlled the power of People Dao to the extreme, minimizing the damage to the Yen tribe. Most of the power landed on the ancient god soldiers. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan put down Dark Dancer and stabbed the long blade in front of her. He said in a deep voice, "Guard these children. Give me half an incense's time." Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Yi Qinghan's figure moved, leaving afterimages everywhere. He punched through the heads of the big shot. The first and second stage experts were indeed powerful, but they could not take a hit from Yen Zhu's right arm. Even the bones in their arms were broken. Then, he punched their chests, shattering their hearts. Even their godheads were knocked out of their bodies. Bang bang bang! Yi Qinghan was as fast as lightning. He sped through the Yen tribe, destroying the surrounding buildings and causing countless casualties. The ancient god lineage was finally in chaos. They frantically retreated to avoid the demon in front of them. However, the more they retreated, the more ferocious Yi Qinghan's attacks became. He attacked indiscriminately and could even kill dozens of people in an instant. Boom! Whoosh! Die! At this moment, one of the ancient god lineage's fourth form finally broke free from the Yan tribe's elder. He descended from the sky and attacked Yi Qinghan. Bang! Yi Qinghan clenched his iron fist and stomped on the ground. He rushed up to the 9 heavens and punched out, clashing head-on with the fourth form. Boom! In midair, the two of them clashed. Shock waves swept across the Milky Way, and Yi Qinghan's body plummeted downwards. Meanwhile, the fourth state cultivator was sent into the depths of the Milky Way by Yi Qinghan, and the web between his thumb and forefinger cracked. Bang! Yi Qinghan was knocked to the ground, but he didn't stop at all. His body flickered, and a ferocious glint appeared in his eyes as he charged into the enemy army once again. His arms were like machines that reaped the lives of God. He threw out thousands of punches, and his speed was so fast that he left behind afterimages. It seemed that even the afterimages could kill. The ancient god lineage was finally shocked. They frantically retreated. The army formation had been destroyed. This time, it was the Yan tribe's turn to retaliate. The Yan clan elder seized the opportunity and attacked with all his might, hoping to use his own life to deplete more of the ancient god's lives. At this moment, the fourth form ancient god that had been sent flying rushed back angrily. His sword pierced through space and time and appeared above Yi Qinghan's head. Boom! Hua! Yi Qinghan's right hand turned into a claw and grabbed the divine sword in his opponent's hand. The fourth form ancient god was so shocked that his eyeballs almost fell out. How is this possible? The expert in the fourth state was terrified. It was almost impossible for him to break free from Yi Qinghan's right hand. Just as he was hesitating whether or not he should let go of the divine sword in his hand, Yi Qinghan's foot shot straight up into the sky and landed on his head, almost knocking out his divinity. Chapter 2702. Bang! Pooh! Yi Qinghan's kick landed on the fourth form ancient god expert's head. He almost bit off his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood. His divine sword flew out of his hand, and his body flew into the sky. But this time, Yi Qinghan didn't let him escape. Instead, he charged forward, his left hand grabbing at the flying fourth form. With a flip of his right hand, the hilt of the divine sword appeared in his hand. With a cold glint, a perfect arc pierced into the fourth form's neck. Pu-chi! The divine sword pierced through the fourth form ancient god expert's neck. Blood dripped from the tip of the sword. This was the first time a fourth form ancient god expert had been killed by his own divine weapon. Because Yi Qinghan had changed the order of the divine weapon, it was no longer under the control of its master. The divine sword was submerged by the power of humanity, which then submerged the fourth form ancient god expert's broken body. Bang! Boom! Yi Qinghan's right arm turned into an elbow strike and smashed into the fourth form ancient god expert's head. The fourth form ancient god expert did not even have time to display any advantage before he was killed. His godhead and soul did not escape either. In an instant, the area within a 10-kilometer radius of the Yan tribe fell into a deathly silence. Yi Qinghan was expressionless. He had just killed a fourth form ancient god expert, not a fourth form ancient god expert. Hua! Yi Qinghan turned around, his black hair fluttering. His fierce eyes stared at the fourth form ancient god expert. Tap tap tap, the corners of Yi Qinghan's eyes flickered, and his lips curled up into a cold smile. He slowly walked forward. The momentum of the world was shaken, and a domain of 10,000 kilometers was formed. His words and actions followed, and his every move could shake the grand Tao. Even the Tao of sovereigns was nothing more than this. Which primordial over-god did your ancestors serve? Yi Ching Han slowly appeared in front of the old man and asked coldly like a god looking down on an ant. Hiss hiss hiss, although the old man was in his fourth form, he was not an ancient god general, nor was he a fourth form ancient god. There was no way he could contend against Yi Ching Han, much less against Yi Ching Han's aura. He sucked in a cold breath, his body trembling as he involuntarily retreated. You're from the Yen clan, the fourth form said in fear. Yi Ching Han's voice was solemn and dignified. His words were like pearls as he said quietly, "Yes, the successor of the Yen clan's first emperor Yi Ching Han. Now, if you answer my question, I can let you leave alive." The fourth form could not hide the fear in his eyes. This was because Yi Ching Han was in control of his surroundings. His life and death were in the hands of Yi Ching Han. The ancestor assisted the primordial sovereign of the great Tao. The fourth form immediately said, "Tao sovereign's people." Yi Ching Han's voice was strange. He twirled his finger, and the divine light transformed into a sharp blade. He said calmly, "Since Tao sovereign, the successor of the primeval sovereign, is already dead, there's no need for you to continue living." Whoosh! Boom! Yi Ching Han's 5 fingertips were like sharp knives with sharp edges on all 4 sides. They were used specifically to draw blood, and in the blink of an eye, they pierced through the opponent's chest. Poochie! Yi Ching Han's right hand pierced through the man's chest and grabbed his heart. His left hand grabbed his head, suppressing his godhead within. He did not give him a chance to escape. Didn't you say you wouldn't kill me?" The fourth form elder despaired. He glared at Yi Ching Han with unwillingness. His eyes were ferocious, as if he was furious that Yi Ching Han did not keep his word. Yi Ching Han calmly said, "The enemy's words cannot be trusted. If you don't even understand this, how did you manage to survive until now and cultivate to the fourth form?" Bang! Crack! Yi Ching Han exerted force with both hands and crushed the opponent's heart. His left hand pierced through the man's sea of consciousness and seized his godhead. The power of People Tao flooded the man's sea of consciousness and destroyed his soul. 2 fourth form elders died in the blink of an eye. Yi Ching Han was like a ferocious demon. His body was dyed red with god blood, scaring the ancient god army far away. They trembled and turned into beasts to flee. The elder of the Yen clan wanted to kill them all, but Yi Ching Han waved his hand and said, "Don't chase a cornered enemy. The enemy still has 2 fourth form elders. Sooner or later there will be a real battle to the death. Let them escape first." "Yes, Your Highness." The elder of the Yen clan immediately bowed. Yi Ching Han looked around at the corpses and thousands of injured. He immediately said, "Treat the injured first and bury the dead. Set out today to meet up with the large tribes and gather all the strength of the Yen clan. Don't let the enemy defeat us one by one." "Yes. Many thanks, Your Highness." The people of the Yen clan were wild with joy. They thought that their clan was going to be exterminated. They didn't expect Yi Ching Han to be so strong. He was also the inheritor of the number 1 emperor of the Yen clan. They were very excited. They felt that the Yen clan finally had hope and were no longer passive. Yi Ching Han took a deep breath and stepped to Dark Dance's side. He waved his hand and brought her into the valley. Dark Dance's body was pierced. Although Yi Ching Han stopped the bleeding, the wound was still there. This kind of wound penetrated the body and caused great damage. Her face was pale and the fear in her eyes had yet to settle. Whoosh! Yi Ching Han waved his hand and a ray of light slid across Dark Dance's chest. A soft touch circled around his fingertip. Dark Dance moaned. Her voice was like the sound of nature. If it was someone else, they would have been paralyzed. Yi Ching Han's willpower was firm. He wasn't moved. He then separated his hands and used all his immortal spiritual energy to absorb the harmful order and laws in her body. He healed all the wounds on her body. Ah! Dark Dancer let out a satisfied cry. Coupled with the swaying of her body and the strange sound, even Yi Qinghan felt a little strange. But Yi Qinghan reached out and hit the back of her head. He said coldly, "Don't make that kind of sound." Ah, why? Dark Dance didn't understand what her moaning meant. She touched the back of her head and asked in confusion. Yi Qinghan looked at the innocent Dark Dance. His fingertips trembled and brushed past her forehead. He couldn't communicate with her. He could only say, "Don't ask so many questions. Just don't make that kind of sound in the future." "Oh," Dark Dancer silently replied with a pout. Yi Qinghan didn't say anything else. He looked up at the sky. The stars shifted and the divination appeared. His appearance would definitely alarm the two fourth form immemorial expert. They were definitely not weaker than the ancient heavenly emperor. Moreover, there were two of them. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't go against the heavens. He couldn't even deal with one ancient heavenly emperor, let alone two. The sky turned red, as if it had been washed in blood. Danger is coming. The true calamity of death is coming, Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. Dark Dance's eyes were filled with little stars. They were filled with admiration. She said with confidence, "You're so strong. Who can hurt you?" Yi Qinghan laughed self-deprecatingly. He said calmly, "That's because you haven't seen an expert. There are many who can kill me. In the primordial age, people who could kill me were everywhere." Hua! Yi Qinghan turned and stepped towards the Yan tribe. His battle robe was still dripping blood. The wound on his right hand was bleeding non-stop. It wasn't that easy for him to snatch the divine sword. It was a method of mutual destruction. He had caught his opponent off guard and killed him with injuries. Hua! The power of humanity enveloped his right arm. The wound didn't heal. Instead, it flowed with thicker Yan tribe blood. Yi Qinghan took out the Yan ancestor's left arm and sat at the mouth of the valley. Blood dyed his left arm red. After so many years, the order inside the left arm was about to be destroyed. If he wanted to refine it, he had to repair the left arm first. The Yan ancestor's left arm was bathed in a river of blood. Streams of power of humanity flowed through the arm. Yi Qinghan didn't know how to repair the left arm, but he knew how to repair the right arm. Both arms were in the same order. The essence of the left arm began to recover. Chapter 2703. Yi Qinghan was bathed in the light of the human Tao, and the mysteries of heaven and earth were revealed. His supernatural powers were unleashed at this moment. Yan Zu's left arm floated in the air, and 10 colors were attached to it. There were also tiny colored lightning bolts moving about. The left arm that was in a state of nirvana had devoured so much energy, and the order was slowly recovering. However, it was too slow and it would take at least 10 years. In the headquarters of the ancient god clan, the defeated army retreated with lingering fear. When they looked in the direction of the Yan tribe, they were trembling all over. There was a huge temple in the headquarters, and it was similar to the immemorial Great Tao Temple. The stone statue in the temple was of the immemorial Great Tao Master God, and it was extremely majestic. This was the faith of the ancient god clan, and it was also the reason for their survival. Here, they could not return to the ancient immortal world, and could only rely on this faith to survive. Inside the shrine sat a decaying old man. His godly aura was restrained, just like an ordinary old man. However, his deep eyes were filled with majesty, and the aura of a superior pervaded the air. Even an expert in the fourth state would have a feeling of not being able to raise their head when they saw him. This kind of majesty was definitely not inferior to the ancient heavenly emperor and Jingfan Mountain Lord, and it might even surpass Jingfan Mountain Lord. He was the supreme ruler of the ancient god clan. Other than praying and cultivating every day, he did not leave the temple at all. However, he could no longer move, and even if he wanted to go out, he had to push the wheelchair himself. At this moment, his personality was strange, and he was too angry. If he was dissatisfied, he would kill. Many experts in the third state had been killed by him, and experts in the fourth state had to kneel when they saw him. It was a blasphemy to His Majesty. Dao Long Divine General, this was the title that the old man gave himself. He was far from a divine general, but he was already the supreme ruler. What was so difficult about calling himself a divine general? No one dared to disobey. Hua! Dao Long Divine General seemed to feel that the headquarters outside was in chaos. With a thought, the surrounding laws changed, and divine power surged. The wheelchair automatically changed direction, and slowly slid out of the temple. Outside the temple, a large number of divine soldiers were lying in a mess. Blood flowed like a river, and the ancient god clan's war flags were scattered all over the place. Hua! Dao Long Divine General looked down at the gods, and killing intent flashed in his eyes. He asked majestically, "Where are Dao Lang and Dao Qi?" Bang! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! All of a sudden, the remaining 20,000 soldiers all knelt on the ground in fear. A middle-aged man with the highest military rank quickly knelt in front of Dao Long Xinjiang and said in fear, "Ancestor, the two elders are dead." A young supreme being suddenly appeared in the Yen clan, and he killed two elders with a single move. Dao Long Xinjiang's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He stared at the people in front of him and snorted, "You all deserve to die. After so many years, you actually didn't notice that the Yen clan had another utmost exalted. What use do we have for you?" Bang bang bang! "Ancestor, please spare our lives. This person is a new face. We've never seen him before." Over 20,000 defeated warriors kowtowed and begged for mercy in fear, fearing that they might anger this man who was about to die. Dao Dragon Deity General looked up at the sky. His eyes pierced through everything as if he saw the impending catastrophe. The murderous intent in his eyes intensified. The ominous star broke through space and arrived. The path of life is gradually sealed, and the path of death is everywhere. Dao Long Xinjiang looked at the moving stars in the sky and sighed. For so many years, this old man has led this line to suppress the Yen clan. I'm about to die, but this situation happened. Time waits for no man. If I were 1,000,000 years younger, killing the ominous star would be as easy as flicking a finger. Sigh, a long sigh, expressing the sorrow of old age. No one dared to say anything. These old immortals were the most inhumane. They could kill their enemies, but they could also kill their own children. The immemorial ancient immortal line was located in another part of the East. The current situation was almost the same, but their casualties were even worse. Almost all of their immortal soldiers were dead. 2 of the 3 fourth form immortals died, and the last one was heavily injured by the 2 elders of the Yen clan. He almost died, but luckily managed to escape. The strongest ancient immortals already had half a foot in death. They crossed the immemorial ancient immortal and ignored time. It was definitely not easy for them to survive until now. Their understanding of immortal techniques and secret techniques had already reached the peak. Immortal General Jiang and the old man were the same. Although they hadn't reached that level, they still called themselves generals. However, it wasn't laughable because their cultivation was already invincible in this space. The 2 of them didn't want to die, so they didn't use their final source to destroy the Yen clan's inheritance. Maybe they wanted to toy with the Yen clan, but in the end, the Yen clan didn't expect reinforcements to arrive. They waited until Yi Qinghan, the Yen clan's inheritor, returned. Laughable, laughable. A grasshopper that was about to die actually jumped up. Immortal General Jiang looked up and sighed. His withered hands grabbed the wheelchair, and his 5 fingers sank deep into it. Old ancestor, with that person's strength, only you can deal with him. The last 4th form immortal knelt and said in fear. The ancient immortal clan's main camp was deathly silent. Jiang Tian closed his eyes and pondered. If he attacked now, Yi Qinghan would die. Of course, he would die too. There was no hope. Go, ask Immortal General Dao Long if we can work together and use half of our life source to kill this ominous star. Break the path of death and turn it into a path of life. Immortal General Jiang didn't want to die, but Immortal General Dao Long definitely didn't want to die either. If they wanted to live, they had to work together. Yes. Although the last fourth form expert was heavily injured, he still clenched his teeth and retreated to the ancient god's main camp. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. His figure soared into the air and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. At this moment, Yi Qinghan's forehead was dripping with sweat. The Order of the Yen ancestors' left arm was recovering extremely slowly. However, the might of the arm was getting stronger and stronger. 3 months passed in a flash and the recovery was less than 1%. Moreover, the consumption of energy was extremely great. If the human Tao Emperor Pagoda was here, Yi Qinghan wouldn't need to worry about the consumption of human Tao energy at all. However, using his flesh and blood to repair the Yen ancestor's left arm was like an ant eating an elephant. Anwu looked at Yi Qinghan with her chin in her hand. She didn't need to hide her admiration at all. She had never seen someone of the younger generation who could be so strong. Even the Dark Moon clan's crown prince wasn't as exaggerated as Yi Qinghan. When can I be so powerful? Anwu raised her small mouth and fantasized, when I'm so powerful, maybe I can really find a way back and take back the Dark Moon clan's territory. Just as Yi Qinghan was recovering his left arm, the Yen clan received a post. It was actually a post from Immortal General Dao Long and Immortal General Jiang inviting Yi Qinghan to Flying Dragon Mountain. It didn't say that it was a battle or a peace treaty. It was just a very plain post to discuss the Tao. The Yen clan elder frowned. He didn't understand why the ancient gods and ancient immortals were doing this. The elder stepped into the valley and watched from afar as Yi Qinghan repaired the Yen ancestor's left arm. He didn't dare to disturb him as he didn't know how to heal the two old monsters. He could only pace back and forth at the entrance of the valley. Anwu looked curiously at the Yen clan elder. She walked over and asked, "Grandpa, what are you doing?" "I'm wondering if I should inform His Highness that the ancient gods and ancient immortals have sent an invitation to His Highness to Flying Dragon Mountain," the Yen clan elder said hesitantly. Anwu shook her head and reminded, "Grandpa, Lord Yi said that as long as the two old monsters don't attack the clan, we shouldn't disturb his seclusion." The elder could only retreat. However, a few days later, a second invitation arrived. It was an ultimatum. In less than a month, Immortal General Dao Long and Immortal General Jiang Tian would personally step into the Yen clan tribe. The elder had no choice but to head to the valley again. He said respectfully, "His Highness, it seems that the two old monsters are determined to see you." "What do you think?" Yi Qinghan slowly opened his eyes. However, he didn't stop repairing the Yen ancestor's left arm. He only replied coldly, "Reply to the two old men and tell them that I will appear in Flying Dragon Mountain in a month. If I don't update these 2 days, I'll start on August 1st. I'll update at least 2 chapters a day. Thanks." Chapter 2704. 2 posts with the same content were sent to the headquarters of the ancient gods and ancient immortals at the same time. The 2 supreme experts were so old that their eyeballs had sunk into their eye socket. They looked at the content of the posts and pondered for a moment before the posts turned into ashes. "Then we'll wait for you for a month." Although the 2 fourth form immemorial god generals and immortal generals were not together, the meaning was exactly the same. Time flew by, the sun set, the moon rose, and the stars changed. On such a large planet there were very few places that one could live in. They were either mountains, deserts, or forests. Only plains were rare, and there weren't many powerful creatures here either. There were only the Yen clan, ancient gods, and ancient immortals. These three races had been fighting here for many years and many people had died. Perhaps because of Yi Qinghan's arrival, the situation would change. No one knew what kind of effect Yi Qinghan's meeting with the two sovereigns would have 1 month later. However, the ancient gods, ancient immortals, and the flame ancestor were nervous, afraid, and somewhat expectant. The two tribes of Yen ancestor were united, and the ancient gods and ancient immortals were temporarily gathered together. All sides were in a calm period, confronting each other openly. Even if the people of the three races appeared alone, they did not dare to casually make a move because everyone was waiting for a month's time. Yi Qinghan was still racing against time to repair his left arm. Because he had to speed up, his resources were consumed very quickly. He had wasted about 30 to 40%. If there was enough time, he could save a lot of resources. As time passed, Yi Qinghan's resources were almost exhausted, but Yen ancestor's left arm had only been repaired by 40%. Dark Dance was quietly guarding at the side, staring at Yi Qinghan without blinking. Her eyes were filled with infatuation and love. Yi Qinghan did not have the mind to care about Dark Dance. The moment his resources were exhausted, there were still 3 days before the 1-month deadline. He tentatively began to refine his left arm. Although there was still a lot of internal order in his left arm that had not been repaired, his blood vessels were connected, so refining it was not difficult. However, the combat strength he could display was not even 1/1000th of the flame ancestor's right arm. However, with Yi Qinghan's strength, he was unable to unleash even 1/1000th of the strength of Yan Zhu's right arm. On the contrary, Yan Zhu's left arm was more compatible with his body. On the third day, the flame ancestor's left arm was refined into Yi Qinghan's left arm. It was flawless. His body was blooming with the might and order of an ancient supreme being. When he opened his eyes, he could see through 10,000 laws. The order of this ancient star was clearly seen through. Natural life planets were far more orderly and strict than the worlds inside the bodies of experts. Hua! Yi Qinghan stood up. His battle robe was covered in dust. His handsome face revealed a trace of seriousness. This time, the refining of his left arm did not achieve the effect he wanted. Now, when facing a fourth form immemorial expert, it was completely possible for him to maintain the state of mutual injury. However, when facing two supreme immemorial experts, the danger was too great. Unfortunately, time waits for no man. Give me another 10 years, so what if I have two supreme beings? Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and muttered. He then looked at Dark Dance beside him. Seeing the light in her eyes, he could not help but sigh and shake his head. Dark Dance, follow me to the tribe, Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Oh! Dark Dance obediently followed behind, not daring to disobey in the slightest. The two entered the entrance of the tribe one after the other. At this time, the two great tribes of Yen clan were waiting silently. Several elders of Yen clan were worried and nervous. His Highness is back. Greetings, His Highness. Seeing Yi Qinghan appear, everyone stepped forward and bowed. Yi Qinghan nodded faintly and said, Everyone, there is no need to be so formal. Tomorrow I will meet the two divine generals. Stay in the tribe and prevent them from ambushing us. Hearing this, everyone immediately rejected. Your Highness, meeting those two is no small matter. We are willing to accompany you. Even if we die in battle, we can help you delay an old man. The three elders emitted the will of death. Yi Qinghan was the Yen clan's only hope at this time. The elders could die, but Yi Qinghan could not. Yi Qinghan replied firmly, no need. Guard the last tribe of Yen clan well. If there is even the slightest mistake, the Yen clan will be annihilated. In the vast ancient immortal world, and countless other planes, there are only 3 Yen clan members left after so many years. Do you still want to cause trouble? But as long as His Highness does not die, The Yen clan's inheritance will not be destroyed. The three elders replied in unison. Nonsense. All of you, shut up. As elders, you have to think of the Yen clan's inheritance. Since I dare to meet the two of them, I have a chance to live. There is no need for you to worry. Yi Qinghan's vicious aura soared to the sky. His cold gaze swept across the three elders, causing them to be silent. Dark Dance was intimidated by Yi Qinghan's aura. She was extremely afraid of this fierce person. At this time, a Yen clan secret agent rushed up and bowed. Report, Your Highness, Divine General Dao Long and Divine General Jiang are being carried to Flying Dragon Mountain. They have already set off. Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, nodded and said, Continue to observe. Don't let them divert our attention. Yes, Your Highness. The agent quickly retreated. Yi Qinghan looked at the countless expectant, nervous, and respectful gazes in the tribe. How could he allow his people to be annihilated again? Do not worry. As long as I am alive, those two will not attack here. Yi Qinghan said in a low voice, Three elders, I order you as the Yen clan's inheritor. If any of you dares to leave the tribe without permission, you will be expelled from the Yen clan and will not be buried. The three elders' pupils shrank and they immediately bowed. Understood. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan turned to leave. Dark Dance trembled. Master Yi, I will go with you. Yi Qinghan raised an eyebrow and asked, You are going to give your head to them? If the battle starts, you won't even be able to stop a single intent. Just wait here. Whoosh, whoosh. Yi Qinghan disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye, leaving behind only Dark Dance and the nervous Yen clan members. Why are you so fierce? Why are there so many people afraid of you? Dark Dance pouted. She could only retreat into the tribe and wait for Yi Qinghan to return. The Flying Dragon Mountain was vast and boundless. It looked like a dragon soaring into the sky. The environment was beautiful, the vast expanse of vegetation was lush, and a clear river ran through the sky, reaching the edge of the earth. There were no powerful creatures here, nor were there enough spirit herbs. It was not easy for 1 or 2 fourth-form cultivators to be born here. Divine General Dao Long and Divine General Jiang Tian sat on chairs, carried by dozens of experts. The scene was extremely majestic and grand, comparable to that of an emperor. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Everyone rushed, and in the blink of an eye, they had traveled a few hundred miles. Yi Qinghan slowly walked on another path. His divine sense covered the distance, and under the guidance of a spy, he gradually approached the Flying Dragon Mountain. The peak of the Flying Dragon Mountain was not high. Looking from afar, it looked like a dragon was about to fly into the sky. On the second day, Yi Qinghan arrived at the Flying Dragon Mountain ahead of time. He stood on the peak and looked down at the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers with his hands behind his back. Just this aura alone was enough to show that he was an immemorial king. The stars flickered and the endless river of stars had no rules. Yi Qinghan was fascinated by this scene. He seemed to be able to see the laws and order of the river of stars. The ancestors have arrived, a long roar pierced through the heaven and earth. After about an incense stick's worth of time, dozens of experts carried 2 ancient gods and ancient immortals to the foot of the Flying Dragon Mountain. Yi Qinghan didn't even look back, but he could feel 2 terrifying auras awakening behind him. Those 2 pairs of eyes were staring at him. Chapter 2705. Whoosh! Boom! Turning around, the blade fell and stabbed into the mountain peak. The 6 eyes looked at each other, and the order of all laws was distorted. The great Tao retreated. Hoo hoo hoo, dong dong dong. The 30 or so ancient gods and ancient immortals did not dare to look up. At this moment there were only 3 people in the world. The eyes of the 3 experts were like torches. It was extremely terrifying. Yi Qinghan held the hilt of his blade with his right hand and looked at the two decaying people sitting in wheelchairs. It would be difficult for them to even stand up. They were truly heroes past their prime. It was sad and lamentable. The dignified supreme experts were living in pain now. Divine General, you're old. Can you still eat? Yi Qinghan looked down at the two. Although he knew that they were heroes past their prime, he also knew that once they exploded, no one could stop them. Dao Dragon Divine General stared at Yi Qinghan and said indifferently, "Although I'm old, I can still command the army and kill the enemy from 1,000 miles away. There's no need for your highness to worry." Immortal General Jiang snorted and did not say anything. Ha 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 ha! Yi Qinghan laughed, and his voice shook the 9 heavens. The blade under his palm could shatter mountains. The two immortal generals realized that Yi Qinghan's strength had reached the peak. Although he was not in his 4th form, there were very few 4th form experts who could compete with him. Your Highness is indeed a dragon among men. You have the heroic bearing of the first emperor. This old man is impressed. Jiang Tian's voice was hoarse and emotionless. It sounded like a compliment, but Yi Qinghan did not think it was a compliment at all. Yi Qinghan looked coldly at Jiang Tian and the Dao Dragon Divine General and replied proudly, "If I didn't have such courage, how could I have consecutively destroyed the primordial Great Dao Master God's legacies, the 5 elements Great Dao Master God's legacies, the Lightning Master God's legacies, and the Martial Dao Master God's legacies?" What? The two old men's pupils shrank. Yi Qinghan mentioned the inheritors of 4 divine generals. Did that mean that the 6 inheritors of the primordial Great Dao were all dead? Without waiting for them to ask, Yi Qinghan said domineeringly, "The successor of the primordial Great Path, Lord Dao, whom you are loyal to, has been destroyed. Who else are you waiting to be loyal to now?" The two primeval paragons took a deep breath and exchanged a glance. Complex emotions flashed in their eyes. It seemed like they hadn't come here to fight, but for some other purpose. "How should I address you, Your Highness?" Dao Long Xinjiang suppressed his anger and asked in a deep voice. "Yi Qinghan, I wonder if the two of you have come to find me today to fight, or do you have other motives? If you have something to say, just say it," Yi Qinghan said calmly. If the other party did not make a move, Yi Qinghan would definitely not take the initiative to make a move. If he really wanted to fight to the death, that would be 10 years later, or even 100 years later. These two old men had already exhausted their potential, while he was at the peak of his power. Sooner or later, he would surpass them. "Your Highness, are you from the ancient immortal world?" Dao Long Xinjiang had other motives and did not want to anger Yi Qinghan, so he asked calmly. Yi Qinghan shook his head and replied, "The ancient immortal world has been destroyed. Everyone is gathered in the subsidiary planes of the ancient immortal world. The primordial immortal emperors and primordial great gods have all fallen. Even if there are survivors, they are at least heavily injured and have yet to appear in the world. Whether it is the ancient immortal world or the subsidiary immortal world, they are both large worlds. Your Highness, you must have some life-prolonging medicine. Would you be willing to sell it?" Dao Long Xinjiang asked in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan looked at Dao Long Xinjiang with a mocking gaze. Not to mention that he did not have any, even if he did, he would not be stupid enough to help this old man extend his life. He would only dare to do so if he had nothing better to do. Looks like Dao Long Xinjiang is nearing the end of his lifespan. Otherwise, you wouldn't say such words, Yi Qinghan mocked. God knows how many years had passed since the ancient immortal world. There was no way to check. Perhaps these two old monsters had already forgotten the passage of time. Dao Long Xinjiang and Jiang Tian Xinjiang were truly forced into a corner. Without a powerful life-prolonging medicine, they would die in at most a few tens of thousands of years. Sigh. I'm old and tired of fighting. In the end, both sides suffered great losses. This old man is starting to doubt the reason and motive of the war back then, Dao Long Xinjiang sighed and looked up to the sky. Jiang Tian's eyes flashed. He pretended to be a celestial being and said in a low voice, "Yeah, if we continue fighting like this, the Yen clan will be annihilated and we will be injured. In the end, both sides will be injured. The universe is so big, why can't we live together?" Yi Qinghan looked at the two's pitiful expressions and felt disdain. If these two cared about human lives, they would have died long ago. The only reason they were willing to compromise was because they wanted to obtain something from him that could prolong their life. "I don't have anything to extend my life, but if I can return to the immortal world, what kind of resources can I find?" Yi Qinghan said flatly. Jiang Tian Xinjiang smiled wryly. "It's easy to come here, but hard to go back. After so many years, the two of us have worked together to explore this galaxy and almost got lost in it several times. There's no way back. A path is created through exploration. Since I can come here, I can definitely go back. If the teleportation stele was built back then, it means there's a path. As long as we can find the coordinates of the stele, it'll only take a dozen years to go back." Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. These two wanted to use him, so why couldn't he use them? Since he ran out of resources, maybe he could scam some from the ancient gods and ancient immortals. As expected, the two were tempted by Yi Qinghan's words. No one wanted to go back more than them. "Your Highness, do you have a way to go back?" Daolong Xinjiang asked excitedly. Yi Qinghan nodded with feigned calmness, replying confidently, "I already have a preliminary plan, but I'm still short on resources. You don't need to worry about that. If you don't want the war to continue, restrain your people. Otherwise, you won't be able to protect your clansmen or even your own lives." Boom! Yi Qinghan slowly withdrew his right arm, releasing the mysteries of human Tao and the wailing of laws. His aura shook the heavens. Yi Qinghan took control of the flame ancestor's arms and eyes. The two supremes sucked in a breath of cold air. It seemed that the plan they had discussed before was completely useless. Yi Qinghan could take the two of them down with just his arms and eyes, and he wouldn't be defeated. "Wait, Your Highness, you can tell me if you're short on resources. If you have a way, we can provide the resources. We can work together and leave this damned place," Daolong Xinjiang immediately said. Yi Qinghan looked at the two calmly and said slowly, "I don't really trust you. If you want to work together, at least show me your sincerity." "Sincerity? Sure. When we go back, I'll have someone send the resources to you. But when you build the teleportation stele, I hope the two of us can be part of it," Jiang Tianxian said immediately. Yi Qinghan nodded and didn't deny it. The three of them each had their own ideas. In fact, none of them had good intentions. It was just a matter of who was stronger and who could scam the other. Yi Qinghan looked at the two and said flatly, "If there are no other questions, you can go back and prepare yourselves. I'll take my leave first." Daolong Xinjiang and Daolong Xinjiang didn't stop Yi Qinghan, but they didn't. The two of them didn't leave. Instead, they looked at Yi Qinghan's back and exchanged glances. "If we work together, we can kill him," Daolong Xinjiang said with certainty. "There's no hurry. Even if we want to kill him, we'll have to wait until he's done with the teleportation stele. I've had enough of this damned place. I don't want to stay here for another day. Although he's talented and has a bright future, we have to take the risk in order to return alive," Jiang Tianxian said. Daolong Xinjiang also nodded. He was impatient to return. It was because they had their own needs that the three forces who had a blood feud with each other were once again on the same front. In the distance, Yi Qinghan's back was drenched in cold sweat. Although they didn't fight this time, it was more dangerous than a life-and-death battle. Daolong Xinjiang and Daolong Xinjiang were true ancient supremes. They weren't people that he could kill with his third-degree realm cultivation. Chapter 2706. The Yen tribe anxiously awaited Yi Qinghan's return. The spies sent back news one after another, causing a tense atmosphere to fill the tribe. However, before the spies could send back any news, Yi Qinghan had already quietly returned to the tribe. Even Yi Qinghan himself was surprised that he didn't fight when he saw the ancient god paragons. Instead, he chatted peacefully. Hua! The 3 elders of the Yen tribe immediately came out to welcome him. Your Highness, why did those 2 old fellows look for you? We were really worried that you would fight them to the death. Yen Chong, the first elder of the Yen tribe that Yi Qinghan met, let out a sigh of relief and said happily. Fight? They don't dare to fight. Those 2 old fellows are already buried up to their necks. If they fight with me, they will definitely die. However, I will also die, so they don't dare to fight. I will just drag it out. Yi Qinghan said calmly. Yen Chong immediately asked, Your Highness, what should we do next? Wait for them to send the east wind. I will refine the Yen ancestors' left arm. Fate cannot be gambled. It must be grasped in the palm of one's hand. Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Your Highness, will they definitely send the east wind? The 2 elders of the other tribe asked curiously. Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently and replied, Obviously, we can't completely rely on them. We will wait for 3 days. If they don't send the east wind, I will personally go and look for it. What was the east wind? It was resources. Not only cultivation resources but also the materials used to build the teleportation steel. The steel had to be the strongest material in the world. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure of the spacetime laws and order. Once the teleportation steel was broken and the person was still in the teleportation space, it would be over. The person would be thrown out of the teleportation channel halfway and would wander in the endless universe, unable to return to the human world for eternity. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, a group of experts arrived outside the Yen clan's tribe. Behind them were 2 great armies. 2 supreme being experts came as well. The Yen clan's people didn't dare to act recklessly due to their oppressive auras. They were incomparably nervous. The crossbows in their hands were ready to shatter the void at any moment. Yi Qinghan stood on the wooden wall of the tribe, looking at Dao Long and Jiang Tian, the 2 primordial supremes, who looked like they were about to kill someone. Although he was nervous, he didn't show it on his face. He pretended to be calm and leaped forward, arriving in front of Dao Long and the others. I'm afraid the 2 of you will scare the children with your expressions, Yi Qinghan said coldly. In other words, they could only scare children, not him. Ha ha ha, how could the 2 ancient supremes not understand Yi Qinghan's intention? Immediately, they laughed loudly to conceal their killing intent. Whoosh! A cold light flashed, heading straight for Yi Qinghan's face. It was a divine ring. It was of a very high grade. The divine ring was filled with killing intent. If Yi Qinghan couldn't dodge it, he would definitely be captured alive today, and the Yen clan would disappear from history. Buzz! Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. He used his will to control the space in front of him, forming a domain. The divine ring stopped right in front of his face. It couldn't advance an inch, let alone kill him. Hua! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and took off the divine ring on his forehead. He said indifferently, Thank you for the divine ring, General Dao Long. I won't decline it. Dao Long's eyes were deep. He didn't expect that this attack could kill a third realm expert. In front of Yi Qinghan, it couldn't even break through his will. Jiang Tian knew that there was no need to probe further. Otherwise, if he angered Yi Qinghan, both sides would suffer great losses today. Whoosh! Jiang Tian also gave out a high-grade immortal ring. There were many resources inside. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and recognized the ring. He looked at the resources inside and snorted. Are the 2 of you here to play with me? You can give these resources to the children of my clan. What's the point of giving them to me? Do the 2 primordial supremes think that I can build a large transfer boundary steel with these low-grade resources? The resources inside weren't little, nor were they bad. However, to Yi Qinghan they were dispensable. Whoosh! Hua! Yi Qinghan undid the contract. He waved his hand and threw the high-grade divine ring and immortal ring to Dark Dance, who was standing at the entrance of the tribe. At this moment, the two sides were facing each other. The sacred weapons in their hands were trembling. They aimed their bows and arrows at their respective targets. Killing intent filled the air. Yi Qinghan and the two Supremes' auras were at their peak. Whoosh! Hiss hiss hiss! In this tense moment, someone loosened their grip on the bow. A sharp arrow pierced through the void and shot out from Yi Qinghan's side. Hua! Yi Qinghan caught the arrow with a flick of his finger. However, the ancient gods and ancient immortals on the other side also erupted. The divine crossbows in their hands pierced through the void. The arrows reached Yi Qinghan in the blink of an eye. Hum! Thousands of arrows pierced through the order of mountains and rivers. However, when they reached Yi Qinghan, they were blocked by an invisible wall. They couldn't penetrate his defensive chi at all. Bang bang bang! Yi Qinghan sneered. The divine crossbow arrows all shattered as he spoke. The baleful aura in the air dissipated. This action caused everyone to gasp. The two of you, please don't joke around. The three clans aren't familiar enough to joke around. If you want to fight, I'll accompany you at any time. If you don't want to fight, tell your people to behave themselves. They won't be so lucky next time, Yi Qinghan said coldly. Cold sweat dripped down the ancient gods' foreheads. They didn't expect Yi Qinghan to be so strong. The powerful divine crossbows and immortal crossbows couldn't even penetrate Yi Qinghan's defensive chi. He didn't even use the power of People Dao. Thousands of arrows were shattered. This kind of strength was probably something no one could do except for the two Supremes. Divine General Dao Long's eyes flashed. He waved his hand and said, "Children, put away the divine crossbows. This time, we're here to talk about cooperation with His Highness Yi, not to kill." Hua! Jiang Tian signaled the clansmen behind him to put down all the immortal crossbows in their hands. The soaring murderous aura dissipated even faster. Yi Qinghan restrained his aura and looked at Dao Long and Jiang Tian silently. He said in a low voice, "If the two of you want to return to the ancient immortal world alive, it's best that you don't play with me. At most, you and I will die together. However, your two clans don't have any experts left. We still have 3 elders. The final winner will still be my Yen clan. What kind of resources do you want? This remote place doesn't even have a decent life-prolonging elixir. What kind of resources can we find?" Divine General Dao Long reminded in a low voice. Yi Qinghan thought for a moment and replied, "If we want to rebuild the transmission boundary monument, we need a suitable one first. Otherwise, it's just empty talk. As for resources, it's best if it's a space-type elixir. I have the profound meaning of the inverse space-galaxy diagram. With the combination of space and the diagram, I believe that I have the ability to find the way back. Let's divide the work. You guys find a suitable boundary monument and I'll find a space-type elixir. If it's not possible, you guys can find a space-type elixir and I'll look for a boundary monument. You choose." None of them were easy to find. They needed to go to the depths of the Milky Way to search. The depths of the Milky Way were extremely dangerous. Once they encountered a giant space beast, the two Supremes could forget about coming back alive. Dao Long and Jiang Tian looked at each other, not knowing what to look for. Chapter 2707. The two primordial Supremes didn't know what they were looking for because it wasn't easy to find anything. Yi Qinghan wasn't familiar with this place either, so they were stuck in a stalemate. The 3 races hated each other so much that the chances of them standing together wasn't high. They could fall apart at any time because they couldn't see any hope. Yi Qinghan looked at the Star River. After a long time, he said calmly, "Why don't the 3 of us enter the Star River together to find a glimmer of hope? How could the two primordial supremes be willing to waste their life source? After so many years, they weren't even willing to deal with the Yen clan, let alone go to the Star River to find space-type divine medicine and suitable materials for the boundary steel. This old man will send a clansman to go with you. How about it? Divine General Dao Long suggested. Yi Qinghan looked at the two with disdain and sneered. Do you think they're worthy of something like that? Hiss, the experts from the ancient God clan and ancient immortal clan sucked in a breath of cold air. Their eyes were full of dissatisfaction, but they didn't dare to refute. This old man will go with you. The fourth form expert from the ancient immortal clan stood up and said firmly. Yi Qinghan looked at the fourth form expert with cold eyes and said hoarsely, with your strength, do I even need to wave my hand to kill you? In my eyes, there's no difference between you and them. If you want to find the resources I need, you can only be an expert. 4 people at your level, just wait at home and don't appear in front of me. Otherwise, if I get angry one day, I'll slap you to death in the Star River. The fourth form expert trembled with anger. He glared at Yi Qinghan and snorted, Your Highness Yi, don't go too far. This old man is a fourth form expert. If you don't rely on the Yen ancestors' arms, how can you suppress me? A weapon is also a part of one's strength. If you can get an archaic master artifact or the Taigu Emperor's weapon, as long as you can control them, you can also talk to me like this. Yi Qinghan replied coldly. The fourth form expert was speechless and couldn't refute. Dao Long and Jiang Tian were silent for a long time. They looked at each other and communicated secretly. I think we can make a trip to the Milky Way. We don't have much time left. If we can't find suitable materials within 10,000 years, we can use the last of our lives to kill Yi Qinghan. At the very least, we can leave a glimmer of hope for our clansmen. Jiang Tian was an experienced schemer. He felt that it was best to control Yi Qinghan in front of him. Otherwise, once Yi Qinghan obtained the suitable materials, he could leave by himself and trap them here. There was nothing they could do. In the end, the only thing that awaited them was death. Dao Long pondered for a long time and felt that Jiang Tian was right. Thus, he nodded and said, All right, this old man agrees to follow you into the Star River. Dao Spike, push me into the Milky Way. Dao Dragon God General said in a low voice. Whoosh! Whoosh! A young expert appeared behind Dao Long Xinjiang. He was also in the fourth state. His battle prowess was ridiculous. He must have been secretly nurtured by Dao Long Xinjiang, but he didn't use him. Yi Qinghan and Jiang Tian were shocked, but Jiang Tian didn't say much. Gu He, push me into the Milky Way. Jiang Tian looked at the last fourth form expert of the ancient immortal clan and said in a low voice. Yes, old ancestor. Gu He and Dao Spike pushed the wheelchairs of the two experts at the same time, waiting for orders. Dao Long Xinjiang looked at the hatred between the three clans and reminded in a low voice, Your Highness Yi, since we are working together, I hope you can restrain your clansmen. Don't kill the ancient god clan while our experts are not around. Jiang Tian also stared at Yi Qinghan, hoping to get a definite answer. Yi Qinghan glanced at Yen Chong and the other elders behind him. The light in his eyes dimmed as he said in an indifferent voice, Elders, don't make any rash moves before I return. Everything is predestined, let nature take its course. Yes. Yen Chong and the others immediately bowed. Dark Dancer tiptoed behind Yi Qinghan and whispered, Take me with you. Actually, I'm quite familiar with the mysteries of space. I've also tried to figure out how to go back, but I got stuck on something and didn't succeed. Yi Qinghan didn't want to take her, but at this moment, Dao Long Xinjiang said firmly, Take her. She must go. Yi Qinghan frowned and stared at Dao Long Xinjiang. Why must she go? Dao Long Xinjiang's eyes flashed cunningly, then he smiled and said indifferently, Your Highness Yi is smart, why ask me? Hiss hiss. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and snorted in his heart. Without saying anything else, he grabbed Dark Dance and flew into the sky. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Dao Spike and Gu, he pushed Dao Long Xinjiang and Jiang Tian Xinjiang at the same time. The 6 of them flew out of the Milky Way and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Outside the Yen clan, everyone was filled with killing intent. The ancient gods and ancient immortals no longer had any experts, but the Yen clan still had 3 elders. Although Yi Qinghan ordered them not to act recklessly, there were still some things that had to be done. For example, the Yen clan women who had been captured by the ancient gods and ancient immortals. Capture them alive. If they dare to resist, just cripple them. Yen Chong waved his hand and all the experts from the Yen clan rushed up and started to beat up the ancient gods and ancient immortals. Some third-degree realm experts wanted to resist, but they were beaten up by the 3 elders until they couldn't even recognize their own mothers. The ancient gods and ancient immortals had been strong their whole lives, but they didn't expect that they would be beaten to the point where they didn't even dare to fight back. Yen Chong and the rest brought the captives into the 2 clans' main camp and threw them into the prison, rescuing the tens of thousands of Yen clan captive. Yen Chong and the rest didn't expect that these captives were still alive. Many of them were elites of the Yen clan who had gone missing while on a mission. It had been many years, and everyone thought that they were dead. They didn't expect that they were now covered in blood and had shocking wounds. It was as if they had been tortured or studied by the ancient gods and ancient immortals. Many Yen clan women had become slaves. They were unyielding and would rather die than submit. They were shackled and tortured for many years. Yen Chong and the rest could still control their emotions, but the Yen clan youths couldn't. They raised their blades and left, wanting to kill all the ancient gods and ancient immortals captive. However, Yi Qinghan's orders still revolved around Yen Chong and the rest, so the 3 elders didn't dare to let them act recklessly. Don't forget His Highness's orders before he left. You can beat them, but you can't kill them. Yen Chong immediately reminded them. The Yen clan had almost lost their minds, but when they thought of Yi Qinghan, they immediately calmed down. Seeing the many beautiful ancient gods and ancient immortals, they immediately captured them. I'll give you a taste of your own medicine. Take away all these beautiful fairies and goddesses. Ha ha ha, we should also have a taste of the ancient gods and ancient immortals. A few middle-aged experts who were full of vigor sneered. The humiliation the Yen clan had suffered these years was far more than this. If they didn't even have the heart to take revenge, then the Yen clan was too lacking in courage. The ancient gods and ancient immortals women were all elite. At this time, it was their turn to be frightened. The elders of the Yen clan didn't stop them. More and more Yen clan members participated in capturing the ancient gods and ancient immortals. However, at this moment, Yi Qinghan and the rest were far away from this planet. They didn't know what was happening there. Otherwise, the 2 archaic supremes would have been angered to death. Whoosh! The eternal universe was boundless. Only the heavenly Tao knew what was hidden in the Milky Way. The moment Dao Long and Jiang Tian entered the Milky Way, they were filled with vigilance. This was because when they were at their strongest, they had experienced the Milky Way and encountered some terrifying Milky Way beasts. Some of these Milky Way beasts were as big as stars. They were usually in a static state, floating in the Milky Way like stars. If someone accidentally stepped on a Milky Way beast, they wouldn't even know how they died. Chapter 2708. Yi Qinghan, Anwu, and the others entered the Milky Way, led by the 2 immemorial paragons. They went deep into the Milky Way to find suitable stars and refine them into powerful space-time boundary monuments. However, this was a slow process. At this moment, the Void Ridge was in chaos. Only 5 of the 6 Overgod inheritors had appeared, but because of the battle outside Xingliang Mountain, 4 of them had disappeared. Tao Master and the other Overgod inheritors' assistants and Divine General inheritors had all disappeared. Yi Qinxing and Chu Shijun did not enter the boundary monument either, because Jingfan Mountain Master had still managed to enter it. She recognized that it was a boundary monument of no return and stopped the two. 20 years after the three of them returned to the Jiangnan Immortal Valley, the Void Ridge was in chaos. It was easy to explain the disappearance of the divine general inheritors, but 4 over-god inheritors had disappeared at once. Someone would definitely investigate. After 10 years of investigation, the Void Ridge discovered that Yi Qinghan had also disappeared. Some people even connected the disappearance of the heirs of the ancient over-gods to Yi Qinghan. Now, 8 of the 12 emperors of the ancient age had appeared. The rest had yet to appear, but these 8 top experts stood at the top of the food chain. For some reason, they had joined forces to head to the Jiangnan Immortal Valley to investigate whether Yi Qinghan's disappearance had anything to do with the disappearance of the ancient age Master God's inheritors. There were many experts, and they had fought for so many years. The weak had been eliminated, and only the fittest had survived. The crazed manor was no longer a simple crazed manor. With Jingfan Mountain and the Qingzuan Immortal Kingdom, no one dared to barge into the Jiangnan Immortal Valley alone. Therefore, the 8 emperors' inheritors arrived at the Jiangnan Immortal Valley at the same time. Their auras shook the sky, and the emperor's techniques rumbled. Yi Qinxing hid in the Immortal Valley, and Hualing Tian did not appear. The rest of the crazed manor came out to welcome them. Jian Qinxue held the immemorial yin-yang sword and broke the order, leading the experts of the crazed manor. She was the model of the world, and her pure eyes shone brightly, giving the experts a great pressure. Jian Qinxue had almost never fought before. In the beginning, he had been taking care of Wang Shi and Yi Mingxi. Later on, he had been in seclusion. His hands were not stained with blood, but he was able to lead the crazed manor. No one was dissatisfied with him. Emperor Yi followed him silently. Supremacy Yi wretchedly ran out with a sloppy look on his face. This guy didn't even need to go through the tribulation to reach the 4th state. He was far ahead of the experts of the crazed manor. However, his combat strength was still inferior to some of the older generation of the crazed manor. After all, Lin Wutian, Gu Qingyu, Jiang Jingtian, and the others had gained their combat experience by risking their lives. Yan Yunbei, Heaven's equal Monkey King, Desolate Lord Yi, Stan Wuxia, and the other top experts from the crazy manor appeared. They stood around the Jiangnan Immortal Valley while standing on one of the start-winding vines. Jingfan Mountain Master and District Master stood on the left and right sides of the Jiangnan Immortal Valley. Their wise eyes flashed with a cold light, but they did not make a move. At this time, Jian Qinshu looked at Mu Juefeng and the others and asked in a deep voice, "What brings you to the Jiangnan Immortal Valley? Since when did a woman like her have the right to speak up for Kuang Fu? Ask Yi Qinghan to come out and talk to me." Mu Juefeng said coldly. Jian Qinshu's jade-like fingers moved the sword hilt, and the immemorial yin-yang sword appeared. A ray of cold light shot into the sky with a murderous aura. Does the Emperor's inheritance speak without thinking? Or do you think that there is no one in the crazy manor that you can trample on? Although Jian Qinshu rarely fought, her temperament had been nurtured for countless years. She was a mother of the world and intimidated all heroes. Whoosh! Mu Juefeng's sword into the sky, shooting out rays of immortal light and majestic Emperor's aura. Immemorial yin-yang, number 1 of all time. It depends on who has it. Don't use it to scare me. Mu Juefeng soared into the sky and looked down at the Jiangnan Immortal Valley. He wanted to find out if Yi Qinghan was there. At this time, another emperor's inheritance stepped out. It was a young supreme, the successor of the Shao Emperor, one of the 12 immemorial emperors. At this moment, he looked disdainfully at everyone with a jade-like appearance. A wisp of his belt swayed in the wind, giving off an indescribable feeling. Shao Emperor's inheritance, Supreme Cloud. Greetings, Dao friend. We did not come here with evil intentions. We just want to see Yi Qinghan and ask him to come out and meet us. The young Supreme Cloud saluted the Taigu Emperor. He was so handsome that he could conquer all the beauties in the world. However, Jian Chenxue was not interested. Her beauty was more inclined towards Yi Qinghan's domineering and wild nature. She said indifferently, "My husband went out to train and hasn't returned yet. You can leave now." In my opinion, he didn't go out to train, but was killed by 4 immemorial Master God's inheritors. Muwu Juefeng was almost certain that the immemorial Master God's inheritors had joined forces to kill Yi Qinghan. Therefore, they wanted to take the opportunity to uproot the rising power of the crazy manor. Ha 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 ha. Are you trying to make me laugh to death so that you can inherit my land? Supreme Yi suddenly laughed out loud. Muwu Juefeng was stunned. Then, he realized that Supreme Yi had taken advantage of him. He immediately flew into a rage, and was about to attack Supreme Yi, who was standing on the peak to the left of the Immortal Valley's entrance. "You're courting death." Muwu Juefeng was furious. He attacked with the Emperor's scripture. Muwu Juefeng's divine scripture covered a radius of 1,000 miles. The ordinary people were so shocked that they did not dare to speak. The immemorial yin-yang sword was completely unsheathed. The sword pointed to the void and seized the might of heaven and earth. Jian Chenxue raised the Emperor's sword and said coldly, "Mountain Lord Juefeng, before you do anything, you should consider whether you can bear the price. Even if you make baseless guesses, you have to give everyone a reason to believe you." However, Supreme Yi's words have basis. Supreme Yi was not afraid of Muwu Juefeng at all. He grinned and said, "Don't you want to inherit my land? Why are you trying to make me laugh to death? Everyone in the world knows that I am Boss's spiritual pet. If Boss dies, how can I live alone? Otherwise, I wouldn't be so spirited right now. Since Boss isn't dead, it means that he wasn't besieged by the primordial Master God's inheritors. A total of 4 primordial Master God's inheritors have gone missing. Dao Sovereign, Su Tianyao, Thunder Emperor, and 1 primordial Master God's inheritor have gone missing. 4 primordial Master God's inheritors have joined forces with primordial Master God's artifact. Sai, who in the world do you think can resist the 4 of them? Not to mention, there's also a divine general's inheritor assisting them. In any case, my boss can't do it." The owner covered his mouth and laughed. There were not many who dared to take advantage of Muwu Juefeng. However, what Supreme Yi said was true. Yi Qinghan could not resist the 4 immemorial Master God's inheritors working together. There were not many people in the world who could do it. Supreme Cloud, Muwu Juefeng, and the other Emperor's inheritors were surprised. They had doubts in their hearts. Yi Qinghan might really be as Su Tianyao said. He was really the Yen clan's inheritor and had the human sovereign ancestral artifact, the human Dao Emperor's pagoda. With the Yen ancestor's arm and the human Dao Emperor's pagoda, it was not impossible for him to kill the 4 immemorial Master God's inheritors. The Emperor's inheritors did not come here with good intentions. They wanted to eliminate the biggest force in the Void Ridge. There were many big shots in the Crazy House, and they were all people with monstrous cultivation and unparalleled combat power. There were more than 10 of them in the 3rd degree, and the rest were in the 2nd degree. Half of the great army kings had reached the big shot realm. Coupled with the immemorial yin-yang sword, they were enough to lead the world. No one wanted to see the birth of such a force. Muwu Juefeng and the others looked at each other and nodded. Their right hand pressed on the Emperor's sword and Emperor's weapon, and killing intent burst out. Hum. Hum. Chapter 2709. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The Jingfan Mountain Master made her move. She arrived at the Jiangnan Immortal Valley with an immortal sword in her hand. Whoosh. In a split second, the river of stars twisted, the myriad of laws rumbled, and the stars turned against the sky. Countless stars connected into a line, and a beam of starlight poured into the owner's body. The Master's galaxy-defying sky reversal was now the strongest under the Taigu Emperor. Today, I'd like to see if the galaxy-defying sky reversal is comparable to the Emperor's technique. The Master was extremely aggressive. Boom, boom, boom. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The sound of the zither filled the air with murderous intent. Hundreds of experts drew their swords and wanted to challenge the 8 Emperor's inheritances. Fight! Boom! Jiang Jingtian, Gu Qingyu, Qitian Monkey King, and other experts of the older generation had drawn their weapons. Lin Wutian's ancient path swordsmanship was enough to intimidate a 4th form cultivator. Although he was only in the 3rd stage, his lethality was comparable to a 4th form cultivator. Moreover, he was in the top 4th form. In the Kuang manner, other than Yi Qinghan, his combat power was the highest. If you want to challenge the crazy mansion while my master is away, I'll fight on behalf of my master. Whoever wants to fight, feel free to do so. Lin Wutian said coldly. The ancient path sword technique had 36 levels, and he and the Biling King had cultivated it to the 30th level. They were definitely not inferior to those in the 4th form. Lin Wutian did not want to fight as a group. Otherwise, the crazy mansion would suffer great losses. There were so many big shots in the crazy mansion, but how many of them could compete with the young Supremes? Moreover, they had the Taigu Emperor's sword and the Emperor's technique. Therefore, he wanted to fight for Yi Qinghan alone. If you want to fight as a group, I can't stop you, and I won't beg for mercy. However, if you can withstand the awakening of the immemorial Yin-Yang sword, you can attack as you wish. If you can't, you can choose to retreat or fight alone. Crazy Mansion will accept it. Jian Chenxue looked coldly at Mu Juefeng and the others and said proudly, "When had the Emperor's inheritances ever been afraid of fighting alone? They were either in their 4th state or in the 3rd degree of perfection realm. Even if they didn't use the Taigu Emperor's army, their battle prowess wasn't something that Gu Qingyu could contend against in his current state. However, the great Emperor's inheritors had their own dignity. How could they attack a disciple of Kuang Fu? They thought that their opponent was Yi Qinghan, not a disciple of Kuang Fu. If they attacked Yi Qinghan, it meant that they were a generation lower than Yi Qinghan. Killing intent flickered in the eyes of the 8 inheritors. They didn't make a move, but their followers did. Which Emperor's inheritor didn't have a few super experts under his command? Even the older generation of Kuang Fu had a lot of experts under them. Their battle prowess was extremely strong. They stepped out forcefully. One of Supreme Cloud's followers, Lu Yuan, was in the early stage of his 4th form. He had been fighting all his life. Other than the successor of the Taigu Emperor, he had even fought the successor of a divine general and had never lost. He was full of vigor and vitality, his battle intent soaring to the heavens. Boom! Bang! Lu Yuan stepped out forcefully and looked down at Lin Wutian. He said disdainfully, "You can fight for your master, but it's not the great Emperor's inheritors who can fight, it's us. We'll talk if you can defeat me today. If you lose, leave your life and sword behind." Whoosh! Whoosh! The experts retreated, leaving a huge battlefield for the 2 of them. Lin Wutian held his sword and stepped into the air. His sword-like eyebrows flashed with sword light. His aura was oppressive, as if he was born as one with the sword. He stood there like the Taigu Emperor's sword that had yet to be unsheathed. "It's easy to defeat you." Lin Wutian confidently held the hilt of his sword. An ancient and vicissitude sword intent rushed into the void. The ancient path sword technique was one of the top 10 ancient sword technique. In his hands it was extraordinary. Whoosh! Whoosh! Lu Yuan unsheathed his sword and said proudly, "Then come and try. If I don't kill you today, I'll kill myself right here." No need, I'll kill you. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. As soon as Lin Wutian attacked, the pupils of the Emperor's inheritor shrank. No one could understand how he could stab out 1,000 swords in an instant. Every sword shadow carried a sharp sword chi and directly penetrated Lu Yuan's defense. Bang, bang, crack, crack. Dozens of swords were blocked, but the remaining swords were not. It happened so fast that no one had time to react. While they were still hesitating whether or not to save Lu Yuan, Lin Wutian had already sheathed his sword. Lu Yuan was bleeding all over. He had been stabbed at least 10 times, and the sword had pierced through his body. Thump, thump, phew, phew. Lu Yuan's breathing was rapid. His heart could not take it. It exploded a moment after Lin Wutian withdrew his sword. The fear and horror in his eyes had not yet dissipated. His body fell down with a loud bang. The sharp sword in his hand had been cut into more than 10 pieces, leaving only the hilt in his hand. The ancient path sword technique deserves its reputation, the eternal Void Emperor's inheritor said in a hoarse voice. A king would either remain undefeated or fall. This was how cruel the battle between experts was. A general's success was built on the bones of 10,000 men. Who said that a mortal could not become an emperor? Who said that a mortal could not defy the heavens? Who could understand Lin Wutian's sword heart and sword Tao? Back then, when a young and naive child relied on a wooden sword, he was laughed at by the whole town and scolded by his father. Had he ever admitted defeat? Who could understand the feelings of a child who had walked barefoot for thousands of miles and stepped into the insane sect? Yi Qinghan understood this stubbornness, so he did not hesitate to accept him. I, Lin Wutian, am only loyal to the insane sect and the sword Tao. Even if I die, I will not regret it. There is no need for these followers to do anything. Emperor's inheritor, do it. Either you kill me today, or I break your emperor bones and become an emperor. Roar! Lin Wutian turned into a sharp sword and looked down on everyone. This battle would be his first battle to become an emperor. It would either end on his path of conquest, or he would succeed in becoming an emperor. Phew! Phew! Thump! Thump! The aura of the insane sect was even stronger. There was definitely more than one Yi Qinghan in the insane sect. Lin Wutian definitely had the qualifications to become an emperor. The eyes of the 8 emperors' inheritors flashed with murderous intent, and they no longer concealed it. Mu Wu Juefeng would not allow another supreme to appear in the insane sect. He held the Mu Wu Divine Book and was about to fight. Whoosh! The district mistress controlled the stars in the universe, and all the stars in the universe moved according to her will. Mu Wu Juefeng, your opponent is me. Today, I will dye the heavens with your life and send me to the Emperor's throne. The district mistress waved her hand. After 1,000 years, she had reached the grand completion of the galaxy-defying sky technique and successfully become an immemorial divine general. Whoosh! Whoosh! The eternal Void Emperor's inheritor, Mofa, controlled the void and suppressed everything. He stepped out forcefully and stared at Lin Wutian. Let's have a fair fight. I won't use the Taigu Emperor's sword to show the glory of the Emperor's inheritor, Mofa said proudly. Lin Wutian stepped into the battlefield slowly, his handsome eyes full of fighting spirit. Today, he was determined to fight to the death to become an emperor and suppress the Emperor's inheritor. Please enlighten me. Lin Wutian slowly raised his hand, placed his right hand on the sword hilt, and bowed. Please enlighten me. Mofa was the eternal Void Emperor's inheritor. The pride and dignity in his heart could not be blasphemed. Even without using the Taigu Emperor's sword, he still had the strength of a supreme. Whoosh! At this time, the experts retreated even further. The aftermath of the battle between the two supreme was not something ordinary people could withstand. At this time, the people of the insane sect also retreated. Only Jian Chenxue and the Jingfan Mountain Master stood in front to prevent the aftermath from entering the Jiangnan Celestial Valley. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two attacked, and the Emperor's sword technique fought fiercely. The sword radiance directly shook the universe. In the ruins of the Yen tribe, Mu Zhuang, Zhua Shuguang, and the Universal Love Saint woke up. They were alarmed by the shocking sword aura and stood up. At this time, Yi Mingxi, who had been unconscious for hundreds of years, also woke up. The endless resources around her had been unconsciously devoured by her. Now, her eyes were full of terrifying ruthlessness, and the cute look she had in the past had completely disappeared. She was emotionless and desireless. The emotionless Tao seal condensed in her eyes, and everything was pushed back. Mu Zhuang was the only one among the three who knew Yi Mingxi. He said in surprise, "Mingxi, I'm Mu Zhuang." "I know, brother Mu Zhuang." Yi Mingxi's voice was hoarse and emotionless, as if it came from a machine. "You? What cultivation technique are you cultivating?" Mu Zhuang asked in surprise. Yi Mingxi stood up slowly and whispered, "Emotionless Tao." Whoosh! Yi Mingxi's figure flashed and rushed toward the Jiangnan Celestial Valley. Chapter 27:10. The three experts chased after Lin Wutian, and the four of them moved faster and faster. The four of them had been in the fourth form for so many years. Except for Yi Mingxi, all of them had swallowed a 9-colored Brahman heart fruit. Their strength had already surpassed the fourth form, and they had also comprehended the Tao and profound of the 9-colored Brahman heart fruit. Their true combat strength was definitely not inferior to Lin Wutian's. At this moment, Lin Wutian and Mofa had already clashed. The Emperor's sword technique and the Emperor's law tore apart the river. The ancient sword Tao roared, competing with the Emperor's law. Roar! Boom! The two of them had already surpassed the realm of ordinary supremes. In just half an incense stick's time, the two of them were injured. Their swords pierced through their defenses, and their flesh was badly mutilated. Hoo, the two of them started to breathe erratically. In a battle of this level, the slightest carelessness could lead to death. Even if it was only half an incense stick's time, the energy consumed was 1,000 times more than a draw. Whoosh, 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 sword light covered the sky everywhere. Lin Wutian withstood the Emperor's inheritance with his first-order mortal body. The experts held their breaths and stared at the battlefield. The two of them had the best combat experience. Watching them fight was better than cultivating for 100 years. However, those below the third-order realm could not see the sword techniques used by the two of them. Those who could truly comprehend the techniques used by the two of them were the top experts of the third-order realm. The Emperor's inheritors held their breaths and looked at the battlefield. Their fingertips trembled, and they put themselves in the shoes of the battle, looking for a breakthrough. Boom! Amidst the lightning and thunder, Lin Wutian and Mofa's swords collided. The qi rushed to the Star River, and an ear-piercing sound was heard. A wave of qi swept out in all directions. At this moment, on the other side of the battlefield, the district master used the power of the Star River to send the Mu Wu Divine Book flying. He directly activated the Emperor's aura, and it was as if the immemorial immortal Emperor had descended. Too strong. The district master had comprehended the number 1 divine ability below the immemorial immortal Emperor. The power of his palm was enough to determine the winner. Without the Mu Wu Divine Book, Mu Wu Juefeng was definitely not the district master's opponent. "You want to use the Mu Wu Divine Book to suppress me? The Emperor's inheritance is just SOSO. The district master said coldly. What Mu Wu Juefeng lacked was a thorough understanding of the Emperor's Dharma. All these years, he had painstakingly built up his forces, but his cultivation had fallen behind. His realm had risen, but he had lost the qualifications to be called an emperor. Although he was furious, there was nothing he could do. In a fit of rage, Mowu Juefeng used the Mowu Divine Book to tear through the void and charged into the void with the owner. The outpost master used the stars as a spell formation and the heavens as a layout. Shockingly, he was able to suppress Martial God Scrolls and Martial God Juefeng. With a wave of his hand, he could blot out the sky and shatter all things. This was a true battle between supremes. The owner of the district had unleashed his Tao arts and profound meanings to the extreme. The profound meanings of great divine powers were fully displayed here. Without relying on the Taigu Emperor's troops, they could still dominate the Void Ridge. The district master had become a supreme being. He was completely on par with the ancient Heavenly Emperor, Mount Jingfan Mountain Master, and a series of other supreme being unrivaled experts. His prowess as a supreme being had already been decided. Monstrous starlight filled the sky, covering thousands of daos. The wonder of the divine powers was unspeakable. The Emperor's inheritance felt the pressure. This era was destined to be a golden era. There would definitely be someone with a mortal body who would be able to suppress the Emperor's inheritance and become an emperor of all time. They would be comparable to experts like the immemorial Yinyang, Immortal Emperor, and Yen Zhu. The crazy attacks contained extreme technique. Mowu Juefeng was bleeding, and his roar shook the heavens. But below, Mofa and Lin Wutian were not bad either. Life and death were only a matter of seconds. An aura of despair filled the air. Those who did not have a firm Tao heart or the ability to become an emperor felt that their lives were hopeless. Gradually, Lin Wutian's great circle of the third stage could not satisfy the current situation. He fell into a disadvantageous position. Mofa attacked with all his might. He did not want to give Lin Wutian a chance. Lin Wutian's survival instinct supported him. Either he died in battle today, or he crushed the emperor's bone and became an emperor. Swoosh, swoosh. The 31st profound meaning of the ancient path sword art was activated. The bottleneck of the fourth state was torn apart by the sharp sword chi. Hum. Boom. The moment Lin Wutian broke through, his defense was penetrated by the emperor's sword art. It pierced through his left shoulder. But it was also because of this sword that he completely broke free from the restraints of the third stage and stepped into the fourth state. Swoosh. The ancient sword left his hand and hovered in the sky. The sword chi tore apart the emperor's order, forcing Mofa to retreat. Swoosh. Swoosh. Both of them flew backward at the same time. Blood stained the ground. Bang. 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 Lin Wutian's eyes were like torches. When the ancient sword left his hand, he pointed with his right hand and temporarily sealed the wound. But his aura was even stronger. Buzz! A few cracks appeared on the sword in Lin Wutian's hand. It was almost broken. The Emperor's inheritance was different from ordinary supreme martial artists. Moreover, Mofa was in the fourth state. He had a thorough understanding of the Eternal Void Emperor sword art. Not to mention Lin Wutian, he could even fight Yi Qinghan. After pausing for a few breaths, Lin Wutian took a deep breath and became one with the sword. The ancient path sword art turned into thousands of sword shadows and finally became one with the person. The sword momentum rushed to the sky and merged with the sword Tao. At this moment, his combat power reached its peak. Hum. Boom. Bang. 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 Crack. The ground under Lin Wutian's feet cracked. Stones shot out. His body turned into a sharp arrow that pierced through the clouds and the moon. It looked like a sword, but in fact it blocked all escape routes. There was no other way except to fight to the death. Mofa took a deep breath and crossed his hands. Although the sword in his hand was not an emperor's sword, it could display the power of the emperor's technique. The eternal void was emptiness. When the sword was used, all laws were emptiness. Hum. 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 The first sword flower hit the tip of Lin Wutian's sword, causing the void to distort. All laws were emptiness. The space collapsed and swallowed everything. The two were at each other's throat. Their combat power had reached its peak. Boom! The first sword flower was broken, but the second sword flower hit. Its power suddenly increased by dozens of times. It directly pushed Lin Wutian back dozens of steps. The palm of his hand was torn, and the immortal sword was stained with blood. Boom! The sword in Lin Wutian's hand broke from the middle. The tip of the sword exploded, and the second sword flower was shattered. It turned into fireworks and roared in the sky. At this moment Mofa was strong. He formed a seal with his palms. The Emperor's technique imprint passed through the tip of the sword and entered Lin Wutian's broken sword. The broken sword shattered again, leaving only the hilt. Boom! Lin Wutian turned his flesh into a sword. He put his palms together and attached the sword principle to it. He faced the Emperor's technique imprint head-on. In an instant tens of thousands of swords shot out, covering the sky and shaking the heroes in all directions. The swordsman lost control of the sword in his hand, even if it was his natal immortal sword. Lin Wutian's body bloomed with sword light, forming a huge sword-shaped blade. It was on par with the Emperor's technique imprint. After a long time, he was not at a disadvantage. Boom! 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 The two continued to explode. One moment they had the upper hand and the next, they were pushing each other back. Mofa was at an absolute advantage. His follower pulled out his sword and pierced through the sky, aiming for Lin Wutian's head. He wanted to kill him with his sword. Boom! Gu Qingyu crushed the ground with his foot, pulled out his sword, and blocked the opponent's killing blow. Swoosh! 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 In an instant, dozens of experts charged out from behind the great Emperor's inheritor, aiming to kill Lin Wutian. However, the people of Guangfu would not just sit back and do nothing. They pulled out their most precious saint weapons and blocked them out of the battlefield. Jingfan Mountain Master and Jianqinshui stared at the Emperor's inheritors, fearing that they would also attack. Crazed Mansion began to feel nervous. How could Crazed Mansion fight against the Emperor's inheritors alone? Chapter 27:11. The Jiangnan Immortal Valley was engulfed in a murderous atmosphere. The Emperor's legatees and their followers all had murderous intentions. Other than Mu Juefeng, who was being held back by the district owner, and Mofa, who had yet to use the Emperor's sword, the other experts had yet to make a move. There were quite a number of people in the fourth state, but there weren't many who could be called a supreme. However, even if they couldn't be called a supreme, they were still able to deal with the third stage realm seniors of the Crazy Manor. On the other hand, there were only a few experts in Kuang Manor. Chu Shijun Xian was one of them, but unfortunately, his Liang Emperor sword had disappeared along with the human Dao Emperor pagoda ever since the Taigu Emperor's resurrection. Although Jingfan Mountain Master, Jianqinshui, the owner, and Lin Wutian were able to fend off the four of them, their opponents were not just 4 monarch inheritors. There were 8 of them, and there were also many celestial general inheritors. Jianqinshui was also nervous. The sword hilt in her hand was drenched in sweat. Although the immemorial Yin-Yang sword was powerful, she was not. At the very least, it couldn't be compared to the Emperor's legacy for the time being. Zongjing Fu and the others didn't want to be entangled any longer. After destroying Kuang Manor, even if Yi Qinghan appeared again, he wouldn't be able to reverse the situation. This power cannot be left alive. Today we will join forces and uproot it. The 12 immemorial emperors are ultimately the 12 immemorial emperors. We cannot allow others to taint them. Zongjing Fu said solemnly. The monarch weapon had been summoned, and it seemed like he was not holding back at all. Whoosh, boom! At this critical juncture, the 4 figures shattered the order, and the 10,000 Daos retreated. The order of the 10,000 Daos surrendered and retreated. Yi Mingxi had appeared, Mu Zhuang and the others had also appeared. The return of Mu Zhuang, Charity Saint, and Zhuo Shuguang, who had been dead for so many years, stunned everyone in the insane manner. This was even more shocking than seeing Yi Mingxi comprehend the heartless Tao. You, all of you, are alive. Jian Qinshu felt as if he had seen a ghost. He looked at the four people in shock and realized that Mu Zhuang and the others were in the fourth state. Moreover, the power hidden in their bodies was definitely at the Supreme Being level. Holy shit! You can really revive my nine-colored Brahma heart. Boss, you ruined my plans. Supreme Yi screamed and almost fell into the valley. Boom! The merciless Tao seal descended from the sky, cleaving apart the order. Yi Mingxi's terrifying merciless aura suppressed the Emperor's inheritance, causing them to suck in a breath of cold air. The Taigu Emperor's weapon was completely unleashed. Now that the Kuang Manor had 4 more experts, all of them could fight against the Emperor's inheritance. So what if they didn't have an Emperor's weapon? 2 of them were enough to deal with an Emperor's inheritance. Overall, Kuang Fu was slightly inferior and was at a disadvantage. However, it was enough to threaten the life of the Emperor's inheritor. The wooden sword in Mu Zhuang's hand was still a wooden sword, but it was a wooden sword that had just been forged not too long ago. It was a life-bonded wooden sword that had been condensed from blood essence. At this time, it was like an immemorial weapon that could steal people's souls. Greetings, sister-in-law, we are back. Mu Zhuang bowed. The excitement in his heart was self-evident. The older generation of the Kuang Manor was dumbfounded. They were naturally overjoyed that the dead had returned, but why could they be revived? Whoosh! The experts retreated and stood on 2 sides. Kuang Manor stood on the side, staring at the 4 people who had suddenly appeared. Especially Yi Mingxi, who gave them a deadly sense of danger. Jingfan Mountain Lord was also quite surprised. She didn't know where these 4 people had come from, but judging from Kuang Manor's expression, things were definitely not that simple. Lin Wutian also retreated. Looking at Mu Zhuang and the other 2, his eyes were full of confusion. He even suspected that he had fallen into an illusion. Hi Wutian, long time no see. Mu Zhuang had defeated Lin Wutian with a wooden sword before, so the 2 were the most familiar with each other. Lin Wutian's cold gaze pierced through the shackles as he stared at the 3. Although he didn't have a sword in his hand, his sword intent soared into the sky. He said coldly, "Who are the 3 of you?" Apart from Yi Qinxing and Supreme Yi, no one knew that Yi Qinghan had obtained the seed of the 9-colored Brahma heart. However, Supreme Yi had been taking the opportunity to cultivate diligently during this period of time and had not had the time to tell anyone else. Whoosh! Sovereign Yi rushed to Lin Wutian's side and kicked him hard. He scolded, "Idiot, you don't even recognize Mu Zhuang? This guy has already taken a 9-colored Brahma heart. Not only has he been revived, but his cultivation has also increased greatly. That's my 9-colored Brahma heart. If I had taken it, although my realm would still be in the 4th state, my combat strength would definitely not be like this. I'm only 1 step away from becoming an emperor." Sovereign Yi roared angrily and pounded his chest with both hands. He regretted calling out the 9-colored Brahma heart when he first saw it. Mu Zhuang and the others smiled faintly and reached out to hit Lin Wutian's shoulder. They said, "It's really us. We're back." Whoosh! Zhuo Shuguang flipped his palm, and the mountains and rivers turned into a scroll that filled the void. His aura was monstrous, and his words and actions were followed by boundless vitality. The corners of his mouth curled up as he looked at the common people with a smile. Dawn returns. Greetings, brothers and sisters of Kuang Manor. Universal love returns. Greetings, brothers and sisters of Kuang Manor. Roar. The older generation of Kuang Manor was excited and rushed forward. The newcomers didn't know the feelings of the older generation of Kuang Manor, nor did they know the story of the 3 people. However, when they saw the serious Gu Qingyu, Jiang Jingtian, and the others rush forward to hug Mu Zhuang and the others. A flash of happiness and glory flashed through their hearts. Such a force was worthy of loyalty. Emperor Yi also hugged Universal Love Saint and cried tears of joy. He didn't expect the 3 people who died back then to return. Some people didn't know about the 9-colored Brahma heart, but as an ancient inheritor, how could he not know about the legend of the past? Back then, the first emperor of the ancient era planted the only 9-colored Brahma heart, and many people wanted to fight for it. In the end, the Yen clan's imperial land was lost, and the 9-colored Brahma heart disappeared without a trace. It was almost forgotten. At this time, Fanine walked out with a guilty expression. She bowed and said, "Back then, I didn't distinguish right from wrong and caused the 3 of you to die. I have repented, and I hope the 3 of you can forgive me." Emperor Yi sighed. Mu Zhuang Dawn, senior sister Fanine, has done many things to make up for it. If it was anyone else, I wouldn't speak up for her, but she really knows her mistake. Please forgive her. Universal Love Saint was kind and wouldn't hate Fanine. However, Mu Zhuang was different from Zhuo Shuguang. Mu Zhuang straightened his body and bowed to the ancient killing god. He said firmly, "Senior sister Fanine, don't think too much. Even if we can't be revived, we won't hate you. The main culprit is eternal world's consciousness. It has nothing to do with you. Since you've joined my crazy manor, you're a member of my crazy manor." Zhuo Shuguang also bowed. "Senior sister, there's no need to say any more. We understand. Back then, you were used by the world's consciousness for the sake of the common people." Universal Love Saint nodded and didn't say anything. Everyone forgave Fanine, but she felt even more guilty. Tears flowed down her face as she bowed deeply. Universal Love Saint walked slowly, and love and tolerance enveloped the sky. She reached out her hand to support Fanine, and a voice like the sound of nature resounded. "Miss Fanine, don't be sad. The myriad laws of the world cover the eyes of all living things. Who can see through right and wrong? What happened back then is in the past. It doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong. What's important is the present." Universal Love Saint said gently, "I'm sorry." Fanine didn't have the fiery temper of back then. Instead, she was more gentle as she hugged Universal Love Saint tightly. The original killing intent was completely dispersed by crazy manner. The Emperor's inheritors watched from afar, and the killing intent in their eyes didn't dissipate. Instead, it became even stronger. This was because they now had another reason to attack: the 9-colored Brahma heart. Now is not the time to reminisce. Shouldn't we be killing people? Yi Mingxi was unmoved. Instead, she said coldly. Everyone from Crazy Manor frowned. They didn't expect Yi Mingxi to walk further and further away from the path she should have taken. Shurgu walked over with an aggrieved expression and said with a flattering smile, "Wife, shut up." Yi Mingxi gave him a fierce look, scaring Shurgu into quickly retreating. Chapter 27:12. Yi Mingxi was too fierce. Compared to Yi Qinghan, the ruthlessness in her eyes were crueler. However, there was also an essential difference. Her eyes represented ruthlessness, while Yi Qinghan's eyes became ferocious because of emotion. At this time, Shurgu really didn't dare to say anything. He was afraid that Yi Qinghan would go further and further away. At this time, only the return of Yi Qinghan could break her ruthless Dao seal. "Meng Shi!" Jian Chenxue called out in a deep voice. Jian Chenxue's words made Yi Mingxi clench her fists. Emotionlessness is always disturbed by emotions. Emotions are not emotions, Dao is not Dao, and emotionlessness has no Dao. Taoism and Dao are all empty, and emotions are also Dao. The wave of the hand is the Dao, and the fall of the hand is the Dao. If I say there is light, then heaven and earth will be illuminated. If I say there is no light, then all Dao will dim, and all Dao will cover the eyes. Whoosh! In an instant, the world was plunged into darkness. It was so dark that no one could see their own fingers. No one could see any light. When Yi Mingxi waved her hand, it was a technique. When her hand fell, it was a Tao. Her Tao changed, and everything was natural. This was not an illusion. She had truly grasped the domain and the myriad laws. Even the emperor's inheritance could not control the laws and principles of this land. Everything was under Yi Mingxi's control. What kind of demonic Tao technique is this? The emperor's inheritors were all shocked. They all took out the Taigu emperor's weapons, but they couldn't break free from the restraints of the emptiness Tao technique. Within the domain of darkness, everything became emptiness. Countless people were shocked. Their hair stood on end, and they roared to vent the fear and anger in their hearts. Big sister, this is the so-called Tao and Tao. When you are emotionless, Tao and Tao are empty, and all living things are emotionless. The operation of order itself is lawless, unreasonable, and desireless. Why do you need to worry? Yi Mingxi slowly stepped forward, her voice shaking the 9 heavens. It was like an emperor's drum beating on the hearts of all the heroes present. The Taigu Emperor's army had all awakened, and they were fighting for the laws and Tao of this world. Light tore through the darkness, but it could not tear apart the order that Yi Mingxi had set up. This is the 7th Tao outside of the 6th Tao, the Tao of Heartless. It was unknown which emperor's inheritor roared in the darkness, but it shook the Tao hearts of all the heroes, causing them to cough up blood and fly backwards. Dai Mu Wu Juefeng, with the Mu Wu Divine Book in his hand, covered the sky and wanted to kill Yi Mingxi directly. The order she had set up would definitely collapse. Boom! Buzz! Yi Mingxi's eyes formed a seal. The merciless seal spun and broke through the shackles. It rushed out from her eyes, tearing apart mountains and rivers. It directly resisted the suppression of Mu Wu divine scripture. In a flash, everything became void. It was extremely terrifying. The emperor's inheritor's face turned pale from fright when he blocked the awakening of an emperor's weapon with a rank 1 body. This was beyond the realm of nature. If I say the world can't, then the world can't. Everything will return to nirvana. Yi Mingxi waved her jade-like hand. Her black hair danced in the air. Her hand swiped across the void, turning everything into nothingness. Mu Wuxian's book overflowed with immortal radiance, but after a moment, it dimmed down and finally returned to primal chaos. It was in a sealed state. The Taigu Emperor's soldier had awakened on its own, but Yi Mingxi had suppressed it with a wave of her hand. Hiss! Mu Wu Juefeng took a deep breath. He found that he could no longer communicate with the spirit inside the Mu Wu divine scripture. This was an emperor's weapon, but it no longer represented immortal Emperor Mu. Ants are still ants in the end. The Taigu Emperor's soldier can't even use 10% of its power in your hands. If an immemorial immortal emperor were here, everything would still be there. Unfortunately, you are not an immemorial immortal emperor. Yi Mingxi coldly said. Yes. Yi Mingxi couldn't really make the world unable to be merciless, at least not now. All the laws and Tao were still there. It was just that they couldn't feel it and couldn't use it. If a person couldn't use the Tao and laws, no matter how strong they would still be an ant that couldn't withstand a single blow. Boom! The Mu Wu divine scripture's spirit fell into a deep sleep and couldn't resist the merciless seal anymore. It was directly blown away. PFFF. Mu Wu Juefeng's divine sense was suppressed by Yi Mingxi. He coughed up blood and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Impossible, everything is void. There must be a flaw. Mu Wu Juefeng roared unwillingly. At this moment, only one person could see the flaw, and that was the owner. Because she had cultivated the starry river reversal to perfection, this flaw was in the heart. The camouflage art was the lowest level of abhijna and law, while the heart obstruction art was the highest level. When one's Tao heart reached perfection, nothing would change because of the changes in the outside world. Yi Mingxi's everything is void would be useless, but her merciless seal was still an existence comparable to an emperor weapon. What a powerful merciless Tao! The owner whispered and looked at Yi Mingxi with a frown. She was surprised to find that she wasn't from the Yan clan. She thought to herself, if brother is from the Yan clan, why isn't she? Ah! At this moment a wild roar shook the 9 heavens. Supreme Cloud's chi broke through the galaxy and shattered the darkness and the order set by Yi Mingxi. Everything was still there, the laws and Tao were still there. Everything was not void. In terms of Tao heart, this person was definitely one of the strongest. Since Yi Mingxi's appearance, he was unmoved and not frightened. His Tao heart was definitely one of the top experts. They are indeed brother and sister. Taoist Ye's strength can be seen from the sister's perspective. Supreme Cloud is impressed. In the future, I must see the majesty of Heaven's suppression marquee. Since he's not here, Supreme Cloud will come again in the future. Supreme Cloud's chi was monstrous. His eyes were full of battle intent. He wasn't afraid of the merciless Tao, but he didn't want to continue fighting either. There was no need to, because this battle would definitely end with both sides suffering. Supreme Cloud. This person can't be left alive. The merciless Tao is a forbidden art of the immemorial era. No one can set foot in it. Since you can see through it, why don't you kill her? Mu Juefeng shouted angrily. Supreme Cloud's eyes flashed coldly and he snorted, "It's my business whether I kill her or not. If you can kill her, then do it. I don't want to fight with a little girl I don't know. She has the potential to be a monarch. There were 12 monarchs in the immemorial era, and there will be another 12 in this era. As for you, although you have the inheritance of a monarch, you are no longer qualified to be a monarch. Your Tao heart is not stable, and your Tao heart is not stable. If you have your own will, you can break her Tao heart too. Why do you need to find me?" Hua. Zhongjing Fu's figure flashed and stopped Supreme Cloud. He bowed and said, "Taoist Supreme Cloud, why didn't anyone in the immemorial era cultivate the merciless Tao? The immemorial era has its own laws and principles. This person cultivates the merciless Tao. If we don't kill her today, she will be a disaster in the future. She is like the Yen clan and the Dark Moon clan. She has no faith in her heart. What's the use of keeping her alive?" Supreme Cloud took a deep breath, and 9 golden chess pieces appeared in his hands. They released Monarch's aura, and the pressure soared into the sky. At this moment, a young supreme martial artist walked out and said indifferently, "Brother Supreme Cloud has tender feelings for the fairer sex. If you don't want to kill her, then this monarch is willing to do it for you. It's just a small merciless Tao that has yet to be perfected. How can it be compared to the pure and supreme monarch Tao? You can all be killed, but your Tao heart is unstable. Your monarch Tao heart is not firm. In the future, I think the 12 monarchs of the immemorial era will still be our inheritors. I don't want a few strangers to appear. Nobles, generals, and ministers are determined by the heavens. What nobles, generals, and ministers have the guts? This is just a bunch of ants trying to comfort themselves." Hua. There was a word embroidered on the young man's chest. It was just a word, but it contained the monarch Tao and Tao. That word was the immemorial word, Dong. The sun and moon in the sky should be Dong. Tao can destroy the sun and moon. This person was the son of Monarch Dong. Once he stepped out, the world shook and the clouds in all directions moved. Watch my performance tomorrow. 10 chapters. Chapter 27:13. Tua Kong was the successor of Emperor Lu. Emperor Lu was one of the strongest of the 12 emperors of the immemorial age. His combat strength was definitely among the best of the 12 emperors, and he was ranked in the top 5. As an inheritor, Niao Kong had inherited an excellent bloodline. He had also inherited the Tao heart of the unparalleled paragon Emperor Lu. When he attacked, the world shook. Although it was just a simple step, it shook the world and shook the Tao heart of the paragon. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The sound of something breaking through the air was endless. Yimingshi looked at Tua Kong coldly. The emotionless Tao seal became more solid and powerful. Then I would like to see your determination to become an emperor, Yimingshi said coldly. Tua Kong smiled proudly. He raised the emperor's sword in his hand and pointed it at Yimingshi. I will let you see what the Tao of emperor is. Don't think that you can cause chaos just because you have some understanding of the emotionless Tao. The ones causing chaos are you so-called successors of the emperors. You think too highly of yourselves. 1. The emotionless Tao seal rumbled as it shot out, turning all laws into nothingness. 10,000 figures stood proudly in the sky. There were 10,000 afterimages, but they were also 10,000 true bodies. Every afterimage carried a monstrous killing intent, fighting against the sun, moon, mountains, rivers, and stars. Lin Wutian took the ancient path sword of the Biling King. His domineering aura sword. He pointed his sword at the emperor's inheritances and said coldly, "This battle is only a fair one. Whoever dares to break the rules, Crazed Manor will destroy that lineage at all costs and end their inheritance forever." 1. Whoosh! The connection between the stars materialized again. The owner stepped on the mountains and rivers and looked down at everyone. His voice was like thunder. The will of Crazed Manor is also my will. The 12 emperors of the immemorial age have been glorious for too long. It's time for a change. A new force challenging an immemorial age force. Everything had to change. Boom! Amidst the flashes of lightning and thunder, Yimingshi and Tua Kong clashed. The merciless Tao seal tore through everything and shook the Taigu Emperor's sword so much that it hummed incessantly. The Emperor's sword was revived and all things are void was no longer void in front of him. Precepts and Emperor's techniques appeared continuously and were evenly matched with the merciless Tao. The tension was suffocating. This battle represented the fate of Quang Manor. If Yimingshi won, she would be able to intimidate the 8 monarch inheritances. If she lost, Supreme Cloud would make a move as well. The 8 great monarch weapons had been awakened at the same time. Even if the immemorial yin-yang sword was awakened, it would be useless. At most, Quang Manor would be destroyed, but the yin-yang sword could kill a few monarch inheritances. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The Emperor's sword in Tua Kong's hand unleashed Emperor's techniques to the extreme. His firm Tao heart was as hard as a rock. The order that Yimingshi had set up was shattered. It could not hold on for long. The merciless Tao seal was swift and fierce as it knocked the Emperor's sword away. The Taigu Emperor's aura erupted and suppressed everyone. His palm covered the sky. Although the two's combat strength and realm were not as good as Wu Juefeng's, they were definitely much stronger than his determination to become an emperor. Their understanding of precepts and emperor's techniques were also far superior to Wu Juefeng's. Boom! Boom! 10,000 techniques and 1,000 daos could be used with a single thought, changing at will. The changes in moves were overwhelming. Kill! A shrill and angry roar shook the world. Yimingshi's palm carried the merciless Tao seal and blasted towards Tua Kong. Her aura was unstoppable, causing all Daos to retreat and Emperor's techniques to wail. Boom! The merciless Tao seal clashed with the Emperor's sword. Yimingshi's palm seal flipped from the bottom right and drew an arc. It broke through the void and slammed into Tua Kong's shoulder. Puff! Whoosh! Tua Kong was hit by the palm and his left shoulder was almost crippled. However, the Emperor's sword in his right hand changed. The sword's profundity was boundless. It cut through the order and slashed across Yimingshi's left shoulder. Her defense was shattered and blood splattered across the river. Boom! Whoosh! 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 The ground was cracked by the two and their leg bones were twisted. It was obvious how cruel this method of perishing together was. Jian Qinshue's figure flashed without hesitation. He supported Yi Mingxi, who was retreating, and asked softly, "How is it?" Yi Mingxi's eyes had changed. The Dark Moon Clan's eyes were dark. However, her eyes were replaced by the merciless Dao seal. She could see clearly and could even see through all Daos better than others. No falsehood could cover her eyes. The Emperor's inheritance is nothing more than this. Puff. Yi Mingxi's left shoulder was bleeding profusely. The Emperor's technique had injured her root. She was forcefully holding on but could not hide her serious injuries. Blood was spitting out of her mouth. However, on the other side, Tua Kong's left half of his body was no different from being crippled. His Emperor's power could not travel through his limbs and bones. He could not circulate a great cycle. Forcefully using his merciless Dao forced him to spit out a few mouthfuls of essence blood. The merciless Dao shrouded his golden body. If he did not expel the merciless Dao soon, the left half of his body would be crippled. "Your Highness!" Whoosh! More than 10 experts and followers rushed forward to support Tua Kong. However, they were also forced back more than 10 steps before they could stop. Tua Kong's face was pale. He did not expect that even with the Emperor's sword and the Emperor's technique, he could not suppress Yi Mingxi. The Emperor's sword vibrated to express its anger. It seemed to want to break free from Tua Kong's restraints and kill Yi Mingxi personally. If it attacked personally, it would be equivalent to Emperor Lo himself. If it used 30% of its strength, Yi Mingxi would not be able to withstand a single blow. Martial Shepherd Shinshu was also restrained by Martial Shepherd Peak. That was why Yi Mingxi had her way and caused him to fall into slumber. Otherwise, she could not have caused the fully awakened Martial Shepherd Shinshu to fall into slumber. The Emperor's sword let out a long howl. Its aura shook the 9 heavens and crushed all technique. The Emperor's technique roared. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, the heavenly river moved. Flames filled the sky. A meteor streaked across the mountains and rivers and crushed the Void Ridge. The entire Void Ridge seemed to be no longer floating. It was sinking and seemed to be breaking in the middle. Another sword howl rang out. It was like a war song. It roared in the ears and made one's blood boil. Chu Shijun soared into the sky and grabbed at the sky. The meteor broke through the void and appeared in his hand. Sword light filled the sky. Come. The Emperor's legacy. Who doesn't know how to use the Emperor's sword? Chu Shijun stepped onto the ground and walked towards the battlefield with his sword raised. With the Liang Emperor's sword back, the crazed manner would gain another huge boost. Whoosh! Mu Zhuang and the others recovered. In their 4th states, they had accumulated the 9-colored Brahma heart for countless years. Their auras were as strong as the Supreme's. Boom! Jingfan Mountain Master's aura shook the mountains and rivers. Although the sword in his hand was not the Emperor's sword, it had the aura of an emperor. If you want to fight, then come. I also want to replace the Emperor's legacy and start a new era. An era that belongs to me, the Jingfan era. Jingfan Mountain Lord said domineeringly. Whoosh! Whoosh! A mighty divine aura enveloped the heavenly river. Divine consciousness covered 1,000 miles and a domain was born. Gu Jiutian came. She was not alone. Luo Wuhan and his mount, the dark python dragon, were also here. This was an immemorial supremacy. Its combat power was only slightly weaker than a divine general. Even though it had not recovered from its injuries, its combat power was still comparable to a supremacy. The dark python dragon roared. Its eyes looked down as if it was looking for the Thunder Emperor. It was very vengeful. It wanted to kill the Thunder Emperor, the inheritor of lightning. When Luo Wuhan appeared, Yen Yunbei stepped out of the alternate space. No one had discovered that he was hiding in the alternate space. If he attacked the inheritor of the emperor's legacy, the chances of him succeeding were more than 50%. Yen Yunbei greets Master Luo. Yen Yunbei bowed. Luo Wuhan nodded and asked indifferently, "Where is Yi Qinghan?" Yen Yunbei took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "That day, he only took the immemorial Yinyang sword and went to save you. However, since then, he has not appeared again. It is as if he has disappeared. He is definitely not in the Void Ridge." Luo Wuhan could not help but look at Gu Jiutian. He felt that the battle that day must have been between Yi Qinghan and the inheritors of the immemorial supremes. Now, an accident might have happened. However, since the Thunder Emperor and the others had not returned, it meant that there was still a chance. Chapter 27:14. Luo Wuhan understood. Yi Qinghan had saved him, which was why Su Tianya and the others had taken advantage of him. If Yi Qinghan died, Luo Wuhan would owe him a huge favor. Yi Qinghan was not here, but Luo Wuhan did not have any enmity towards him. Even the God-General Godhead could not suppress his will, just like the owner. Moreover, the owner's bloodline was not noble in the immemorial age, so she did not have much enmity towards Yi Qinghan. Who? Luo Wuhan narrowed his eyes and looked coldly at the 8 emperor's inheritors. He said disdainfully, "Since when did the emperor's inheritors not have the confidence to attack a new force?" The 8 emperor's inheritors snorted coldly, looking down on the traitor Luo Wuhan. A fine bird chooses a tree to nest in. Mr. Luo did not see Su Tianya's potential as an emperor, so it is understandable that he chose to call himself an emperor. As the emperor's inheritors, you think you are superior, but in my eyes, you are nothing. Although this is a golden era, I can guarantee that at least half of the 12 emperor's inheritors will be eliminated, and the other half will be replaced by new forces. Gu Jiutian said coldly. Ha 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 ha. A loud laugh shook the mountains and rivers. The ancient celestial emperor stepped through the air, clapping his hands and laughing. My daughter is right. Who said that a god-general cannot be an emperor? In this era, this heavenly emperor will become an eternal emperor. In the next 3,000 years, I will trample all your inheritors under my feet. Of course, this includes all of you. The ancient heavenly emperor stepped forward and started fighting with Mu Wu Juefeng. With a single palm, he sent Mu Wu Juefeng flying. Without Mu Wu Juefeng's support, the difference between him and the ancient heavenly emperor was too great. Chaos, chaos, chaos. As long as the ancient heavenly emperor arrived, it was either a stalemate or a chaotic battle. Because he had no faith, he would not support the ancient heavenly emperor, nor would he support the chief god's inheritors. His arrival not only did Kuang Fu not panic, but also relax. Xiao xiao xiao. Just as the ancient heavenly emperor appeared, 2 figures moved to the limit. It was Su Zhan and Li Peiza. These 2 had been on par with Yi Qinghan in the past, but after being groomed by the ancient heavenly emperor for so many years, they had both reached the 4th form, even more so than Yi Qinghan. The 2 of them were as handsome as jade, and their auras were like rainbows. One of them held a sword and the other a spear. They stood beside the ancient heavenly monarch, and it seemed like they were determined to support the ancient heavenly monarch. Kuang Fu did not have bad feelings for Li An and Su Zhan. Instead smiled and nodded to show their goodwill. Li Peiza and Su Zhan had changed a lot, and now they had settled down a lot. These 2 were the only ones among the dozen or so people nurtured by the ancient heavenly emperor who had fought countless battles to the death. It was also because they trusted each other that they were able to survive until now. Otherwise, they would have been killed a long time ago. At this moment, the 2 of them nodded at Kuang Fu but did not speak. Ha ha ha, this old man spent a lifetime of resources to cultivate these 2 disciples. Do they have the same potential as you? The so-called emperor's legacy is nothing in this emperor's eyes. Only that guy Yi Qinghan is worth watching. In the future, I'll let these two disciples fight with Yi Qinghan. I'll show you what it means to be an emperor. The ancient heavenly emperor was very satisfied with Li Peiza and Su Zhan behind him. He really looked down on emperors' legacies. Revered Cloud and the others sucked in a cold breath, suppressing their anger. If not for the fact that they were in a stalemate with Kuang Fu, they would have attacked the ancient heavenly emperor. Mu Wu Juefeng was furious. He forced out a large amount of essence blood from his right hand and dripped it into Mu Wu Juefeng's divine book, reviving it once more. This time, he would not give Yi Mingxi another chance. Ancient heavenly emperor, you deserve to die. Mu Wu Juefeng roared. The ancient heavenly emperor looked at Mu Wu Juefeng with disdain. Too bad you're not worthy of killing me. No. I believe. Mu Wu Juefeng roared. The divine book in his hand flipped open, releasing thousands of emperor's technique. Don't be provoked. He's here today for the Slayer's legacy. Now that Kuang Fu is holding him back, you need to calm down. Shao Emperor's successor, Supreme Cloud, reminded him. Mu Wu Juefeng looked at the ancient heavenly emperor's murderous eyes and his heart sank. He clenched his fists and had to suppress the anger in his heart. The two of them had fought many times. Even when he used Mu Wu Juefeng's divine book, he was still suppressed by the ancient heavenly emperor. It was clear that the ancient heavenly emperor's strength was enough to be number one in the world. Unless the two primordial sovereigns with Yi Qinghan succeeded in prolonging their lives and regained their peak strength. Hua! Supreme Cloud waved his hand and said, "There's no need to fight this battle. It's a small world. The inheritance of the 12 immemorial emperors isn't something that anyone can challenge. In the future, I'll fight with you, ancient celestial emperor." Supreme Cloud's aura was too strong. Even in the face of the ancient heavenly emperor, he showed no signs of weakness. His combat strength could be in the top 3 or even the top 2 among the 12 emperors' inheritors. The 12 emperors' inheritors had yet to emerge. No one could guarantee the combat strength of the 4 who had yet to emerge. Number 1 in the world? I can't guarantee that. Even if your ancestors failed in the fight for the throne, they should be on par with immortal Emperor Qing Zun and the others as long as they're still alive. Are they all dead? The ancient heavenly emperor's eyes flashed coldly. His target was not only the emperor's legacies, but also the experts behind them. Those people were his ultimate target. As for the emperor's legacies, they were probably only enough to fight with Li Peiza and the others. I don't need the ancestors to defeat you. 1,000 years later, I'll defeat you in the Void Ridge. Supreme Cloud snorted. Hua! Supreme Cloud was the first to leave. He didn't want to fight at all. He was still young and his combat strength was still improving rapidly. He was confident that he could defeat the ancient heavenly emperor 1,000 years later. One of the 8 emperors' legacies left. The other 7 didn't hesitate and left immediately. Swoosh! The 8 emperors' legacies left one after another at lightning speed. The front of the Jiangnan Immortal Valley was almost torn apart. Bastards, I haven't even made a move yet. How can you all run away? The moment Supremacy Yi saw that even the emperor's inheritance had run away, he immediately became spirited and jumped up to clamor. Plop! The experts of the arrogant manner almost fell down. When they were nervous just now, this guy was extremely well behaved. Now that the other party had left, he started shouting. The ancient heavenly emperor glanced at Supreme Yi. He was so scared that he quickly ran behind Lin Wutian and didn't even dare to show his head. How boring. There's no one in this generation who's worthy of me fighting. If Yi Qinghan comes back, tell him to come find me. I want to see his strength. After I defeat him, I'll find the emperor's legacies of the previous generation and use their bones to give me the throne. The ancient heavenly emperor said indifferently. Although the ancient heavenly emperor was arrogant, he still treated Yi Qinghan as a supreme expert of this generation. If he could defeat him, he would be invincible in this generation. Only then would he feel at ease to find the previous emperor's legacies. The previous generation's inheritors weren't any weaker than the Qing Zun immortal emperor and the other 5 immortal emperors. However, as the inheritors of the previous generation, their target was naturally the supreme ancient immortal emperor and not the current immortal emperor. They didn't want to lower their goal and lose the glory of the primordial immortal emperor, so they didn't call themselves emperors. However, many of the previous emperors' legacies had died. At most, there were 6 of them left. A few of the previous main gods' legacies had also died. At least, the inheritor of the divine will Master God was dead. The arrogant manner wasn't angered by the ancient heavenly emperor and didn't want to be angry with him. It was a good thing that he treated Yi Qinghan as an opponent. It meant that he still thought highly of Yi Qinghan. Hua. Jian Qinxue hugged her sword and bowed. When my husband returns, I'll definitely inform him to look for you. The ancient heavenly emperor stared at Jian Qinxue and the immemorial yin-yang sword in her hand. His battle intent surged as he said majestically, "When you've mastered the immemorial yin-yang immortal canon, I'll look for you too. I want to see how strong the ancient heavenly emperor is." "I'll work hard," Jian Qinxue said firmly. "Ha ha ha." The ancient heavenly emperor looked up to the sky and laughed. He said arrogantly, "This generation isn't lonely. I was born in the right era." Chapter 27:15. Whoosh! The ancient heavenly emperor sighed. Then, he turned and shattered the void, disappearing. No one knew what he was here for. It seemed like he was here to declare war on the emperor's inheritance. In essence, he was here to help Quang Manor. Li Peize and Su Zhan bowed slightly and cupped their fists. "If Brother Yi returns, please send our greetings. Even if there's a battle in the future, we'll still be brothers." "Okay." Jian Qinxue returned the greeting. These two had done Yi Qinghan a favor. The battle to ascend to the throne was merciless. Even if brothers killed each other, it was enough. The two then retreated, leaving only Gu Jiutian and Luo Wuhan behind. Luo Wuhan frowned. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan to have an accident because of him. Although he didn't feel guilty, the favor he owed was worse than a beating. "I'll do my best to find Yi Qinghan's whereabouts." "Don't worry," Luo Wuhan said in a deep voice. At this time, Sovereign Yi jumped out and said proudly, "Don't worry, my boss is definitely not dead. Otherwise, the star-entangling vine would be dead. It's best if he's not dead. Since Quang Manor is no longer in danger, we should leave," Luo Wuhan said lightly. "Thank you." The elders of the Quang Manor bowed respectfully. Yan Yunbei was also grateful. He cupped his fists and said, "Thank you, Master Luo." Although Luo Wuhan and Yi Qinghan had developed enmity because of the godhead, Yan Yunbei was different. They still had a master and disciple relationship. "No matter when you're in danger, come find me," Luo Wuhan said indifferently. Then, he turned and left. Gu Jiutian didn't say much. This time, he was only accompanying Luo Wuhan to return a favor. There would probably be a battle to the death between him and Yi Qinghan. Quang Manor watched everyone leave and entered the Immortal Valley. After this battle, not only did the 8 emperors' inheritances retreat, but 3 of the older generation of Quang Manor were also revived. This was good news. Crazed Manor's crisis had been resolved, but Yi Qinghan still had no clue where to go. After searching for several years in the depths of the galaxy, he still hadn't found a star that could be refined into a teleportation boundary steel. Instead, the resources he had on hand dwindled. As time passed, the 2 primordial sovereigns could no longer see any hope of returning. They no longer wanted to hide the killing intent in their eyes. Yi Qinghan had no choice but to be cautious. He brought Dark Dance with him to maintain a certain distance from them. Otherwise, Dark Dance would definitely be the first to die once the battle began. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The 6 of them were traveling in the void, constantly moving from one dead star to another. They were getting further and further away from that planet of life. However, their memory was very abnormal. Even if they were far away from the planet of life, they could still find it if they wanted to return. In the 12th year since the 6 of them entered the Milky Way, they arrived at a desolate Milky Way. There was not even a single dead star. It was in a state of desolation, which made one's hair stand on end. Suddenly, a streak of light erupted from the depths. It was as if a dead star had exploded, its aura rushing into the starry river. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan immediately turned around and protected Dark Dancer in his arms, using his body to block the aftershocks. Boom! The 2 primordial sovereigns rushed into the Milky Way and shattered the aftershocks with a palm. Then, their deep eyes stared into the distance, piercing through the void. Whoosh! Whoosh! Puff! 2 people rushed over from the distance. Their battle clothes were shattered, and they were coughing up blood. Yi Qinghan turned around. His eyes pierced through everything. Even across the Milky Way, he could see how miserable the 2 of them were. Roar! An ear-splitting roar rang out. Then, a giant beast like a star smashed one star after another. It chased after the 2 who were frantically fleeing. The distance was too far. Yi Qinghan could only see 2 people and a giant beast through the eyes of the Flame Ancestor. However, he did not know their identities. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan subconsciously pulled out his 7-foot saber and protected Dark Dancer behind him. He said in a deep voice, "Be careful." Boom! Whoosh! The aftershocks became stronger and stronger. The giant beast was incomparably huge and made people feel powerless. The attacks of 4th form experts were like tickles to it. They had no effect at all. The 2 of them were fleeing in the direction of Yi Qinghan and the others. The 2 of them were very fast. They were definitely the best among 4th form expert. They practically jumped through space and rushed to the front of Yi Qinghan and the others in about half an hour. At this time, Yi Qinghan saw through the 2's identities. The 2 pairs of eyes were the same as Dark Dancer's. They were from the Dark Moon Clan. If he was not wrong, they were the Dark Moon Clan's patriarch and the Dark Moon Crown Prince. Look, are these 2 people your grandfather and the Crown Prince's imperial uncle? Yi Qinghan stared into the distance and said in a deep voice. The distance was too far, so he could not see their faces and eyes clearly. However, he could see their clothes from far away. Especially the aura of the Dark Moon Clan. As a member of the Dark Moon Clan, how could Dark Dancer not feel it? She shrunk her head and stretched out from behind Yi Qinghan's waist. She looked into the distance in surprise. After a while, she exclaimed, "It's my grandfather and the Crown Prince's imperial uncle. Lord Yi, please save them." The saber in Yi Qinghan's hand bloomed with a sharp saber light. However, he did not immediately make a move. He waited for the other party to escape to this place. At least, he had to protect Dark Dancer first before making a move. However, he did not seem to want to make a move because the giant beast was too big. It was comparable to a small planet. Its body was hard. Hitting it was like tickling it. Whoosh, whoosh. The patriarch of the Dark Moon Clan and the Crown Prince rushed over and shouted, "Fellow cultivator, please help us once. The Dark Moon Clan will definitely not forget your kindness." When the 2 of them were running for their lives, they did not notice that the 4 people beside Yi Qinghan were ancient gods and ancient immortals. Otherwise, they would definitely not be running in this direction. Dark Dancer pulled Yi Qinghan's battle robe, afraid that it would be blown away by the astral wind. She waved her hand and said, "Grandfather, imperial uncle, come here quickly." Although her voice was loud, it was directly blown away by the astral wind. Although the patriarch of the Dark Moon clan and the Crown Prince did not hear Dark Dancer's shout, they saw her waving her hand. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Although the two of them were shocked, they did not have the time to think too much. They directly rushed in the direction of Yi Qinghan. Divine General Dao Long and Heavenly Immortal Zhang's eyes narrowed into a line. Looking at the giant starry sky beast behind the patriarch of the Dark Moon clan, they suddenly said in a deep voice, "Your Highness Yi, do you think this thing can be refined into a teleportation boundary steel?" The giant starry sky beast was huge, like a star. Its interior was terrifyingly dense and much harder than a star. Even if it was a star, Yi Qinghan was confident that he could shatter it. However, he was not confident that he could win against this thing. If it was refined into a teleportation boundary steel, it would definitely be able to withstand spacetime travel. It should be possible. It depends on its blood and bone density and the starry sky law it contains. Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Whoosh! A blast of air rushed over, but it was blocked by the three of them. Then let's kill this giant starry sky beast. The remaining space divine herb should not be too difficult. Divine General Dao Long's eyes flashed with killing intent as he said firmly. Divine General Jiang nodded and slowly stood up from the wheelchair. The vicissitudes of the primordial qi surged into the sky and covered the sky with immortal light. Yi Qinghan held his battle saber tightly and said in a serious tone, "If the three of us work together, it should not be a problem to kill it." Whoosh! Divine General Dao Long stood up. The momentum of heaven and earth was under his control, and the trajectory of the stars in the distance changed accordingly. Dao Ci, the two of you take Lady Dark Dance to the stars behind and wait. Dao Long said majestically. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed and said coldly, "No need. Let the Dark Moon clan leader and Crown Prince take her there. There is no need for the two of you to do it." Whoosh! 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 Moments later, the Dark Moon clan leader and Dark Moon Crown Prince broke through the void and arrived. Their bodies were tattered and badly mutilated. They were almost killed by the giant starry sky beast. Dark Dance, how did you enter the Star River? The Dark Moon clan leader reprimanded anxiously. It seemed that he was still worried about Dark Dance's safety. Yi Qinghan glanced at the two of them indifferently and said calmly, "The two of you, this is not the time for you to reminisce. Take Dark Dance to the dead stars behind and leave this giant starry sky beast to the three of us." Whoosh! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and his aura rose to the sky. It was as if the War Emperor had arrived personally. Yen Zhu's arms almost broke the hilt of his saber, which stimulated the evolution of the chaotic saber blank and successfully entered the fourth state. The two strongest experts of the Dark Moon clan were shocked by Yi Qinghan's aura. They looked at the other two elders and recognized that they were the two old monsters, Ancient God and Ancient Immortal. They were shocked and retreated with Dark Dance. Dao Ci and the others retreated for hundreds of miles. Moments later, they retreated to a dead star in the distance. The Dark Moon clan leader and Dark Moon Crown Prince protected Dark Dance and looked at Dao Ci and the others vigilantly. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. Dark Dance, what happened? How did you enter the Star River? The Dark Moon Crown Prince, Dark Moon Quang, asked in a deep voice. Dark Moon Maniac was only a young man. He was very talented when he was young and entered the fourth state very early on. Hence, his face had never changed. He looked not much older than Dark Dance. Dark Dance quickly explained, "It was the Yen clan's prince who brought me here. It's a long story. Don't worry, royal uncle. He's a good person. You must not anger him. His temper is not very good." "What's up with this ancient god and ancient immortal monster? Why are you guys together?" the Dark Moon clan elder asked in a low voice. He was in a sorry state. Dark Dance could only explain, "The Yen clan's prince and the ancient god and ancient immortal have formed a temporary alliance. They want to find a way back, boom. Just as lightning flashed and thunder roared, a blast of air hit the galaxy and directly shifted the eeriness of the dead star. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Great Tao mystiques and immortal spells surged into the sky and intertwined with the Yen clan's human Tao power. They destroyed the galaxy and collapsed the galaxy, forming huge black holes. However, they were shattered by the giant starry sky beast in the blink of an eye. 3 people who looked very weak attacked the giant starry sky beast from 3 directions. The Tao power they used made those in the 4th state feel helpless. Bang bang bang! Saber after saber struck the giant starry sky beast, causing sparks to fly everywhere. The giant starry sky beast was smashed back and roared loudly. Boom! Dao Long Xinjiang used the ancient god clan's mystique to the limit. His palm covered the sky and shattered everything. His palm print pierced through everything and slammed into the giant starry sky beast's back, pushing it down thousands of miles into the galaxy. Roar! Boom! Boom! No one knew how the giant starry sky beast was formed. It was too big. It took dozens of attacks from Yi Qinghan, Dao Long Xinjiang, and Celestial Immortal General Jiang, as if nothing had happened. In its anger, it erupted with even more terrifying power. Its huge forelimbs covered space and time as it slammed toward Dao Long Xinjiang. Bang! Dao Long Xinjiang controlled everything with his mystique. He didn't retreat at all in the face of the giant starry sky beast. His palm hit the giant palm of the starry sky beast, causing the space to distort. He only managed to block it for a moment before he was defeated by the giant starry sky beast with lightning speed. Yi Qinghan's berserk couldn't hurt the giant starry sky beast anymore. He could only put it away. Yen Zhu's arms erupted with the power of human Tao. Ah, roar! Yi Qinghan crossed his arms and roared. His aura was so strong that veins popped out all over his body. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan crushed the starry sky and punched the giant starry sky beast's head. Flames rubbed against the galaxy and formed a huge meteor. The impact caused the sky to change color. Bang bang bang! At this moment, Dao Long Xinjiang and Celestial Immortal General Jiang attacked from both sides to restrain Yi Qinghan's counterattack. The giant starry sky beast's counterattack was getting faster and faster. The giant starry sky beast's huge eyes were more terrifying than the sun. It was like an endless abyss. It could see the power of Yi Qinghan's punch. Its forelimbs were restrained, but it was very intelligent. It closed its eyes and used the tentacle-like rock layer on its forehead to crash into Yi Qinghan. Bang! Boom! Yi Qinghan's punch shattered the order of 10,000 laws and crashed into the giant starry sky beast's head. In an instant, the rock layer on its forehead was shattered. Flames soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, the power of human Tao rushed into the giant starry sky beast's head. Roar! The giant starry sky beast roared and screamed. Its body involuntarily flew backward, causing the starry sky to collapse. It formed a suction force that wanted to swallow the 3 of them into the dark space of nirvana. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.